I think we're live. We're live, everyone. Yes, we are. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new stream, and that is right. We are live on this beautiful January 4th, 2024. I hope everyone's having a phenomenal day, night, afternoon, midnight, wherever you are in the world, and I'm still having a great day myself. And, yeah, we have a very late stream for y'all today. We are doing a live reaction to the CNN town hall that is both Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley in the same event. Now, to be clear, I think they're doing DeSantis first, then Nikki Haley is going to do her event. So, it's technically, both. It's not the same, but either way, yeah. Now, before we continue today's video, or today's stream, I should say, I hope you enjoy these type of streams. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Guys, just for $1 a month, you can join Real American. This is the best way to support the daily content that we all know and love. So I hope and recommend you join the channel today. And like usual, if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or do you want to support the channel even further, the best way to do that is send a super chat via, well, the chat. Again, I try to read through the chat, but usually I get through the super chats right away. So if you have a question or something like that, send a super chat. Again, all support's greatly appreciated. And, yeah. Already a couple super chats. Alex Tarisco for 5. Dave Fredental, the last Democrat governor of Wyoming, won every county twice, just announced for Senate from Wyoming. Only incumbent governor to back Bush Jr. twice. Is that real? He's running? Is he like 75? I did not know that. Alex Tarisco for 2. Vote for Trump in 2020. Says he'll do it again. So, that's interesting. It looks like we may have a Blue Dog Dem running for the U.S. Senate. I don't believe that. I mean, I have not heard anything about that. I think I would have heard by now if something crazy like that was happening. So, I want to look more into it. Glitch EV for 5. Will you be doing the Vivek Ramaswamy and Trump town halls on January 10th, or the debate, or somehow both? We got to figure that out. I don't know. Don't know how that's going to go next week, because it's all the same day. There's 3 events. I might do one stream focused on the debate night, one stream on Trump's town hall, then one stream on Ramaswamy's event. I may just do that. So, alright. Before I forget, prayers out to, I believe it was Des Moines. Was that where it happened? There was yet another school shooting. I believe there was one kid is dead. Just prayers out to all the families inflicted from this. This is a horrible event. I mean, the fact that this is becoming more frequent and people are saying it's guns the problem, it's sickening. When it's clearly a mental health crisis in this country that no one is taken seriously. So, prayers out to the families that lost loved ones. It's heartbreaking. I believe it was Perry High School, right? Yeah, Perry, Iowa. Thank you. But again, prayers up to the city, prayers up to the community, just everyone involved. Just not good. Not good what happened. But, yeah, so, I don't know enough about the story, but I did hear that the guy, I should say, had some serious problems. Alright. Hey, Rap, have you seen any of the Fight Right ads that are bland and mediocre? You should review those ads. I'm thinking about it. I'm really thinking about doing a review of some of those ads. Eventually. Not now, but soon. No, it was in a small town 40 miles northwest. So, yeah. It was the outskirts of Des Moines. Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible that this is happening. And no one's talking about the core issues of why it's here. Alright, so DeSantis is going first with the town hall. Fun. Fun, fun, fun. Nikki Haley gets worse every single day. Yeah, she does. What do you think of Napoleon Bonaparte, the person, not the film? I think he's a great guy. One of the most important people in history. And the fact that people look down on him is just a joke. Nikki Haley, what is wrong with her at this point? She's just deranged. Just orange man bad. Except she's a woman, so. Also, before I forget to mention, we do got the cringe counters out tonight. One for DeSantis, one for Haley. Who's going to rally up the cringe? It's a good question. You need mental health checks in schools, jobs, everyday life. I agree. I 100% agree that there needs to be more of a focus on mental health. That's the problem here, not guns. I hate that argument when people say that. Where's Chris Christie at? Not here. Yeah, I think, Napoleon changed Europe for the better. Now, some of the people that grifted off his name, they made things worse, but yeah. Nikki Haley is a trigger-happy warmonger. At least DeSantis not emotional like most. Well, I won't go that far, but Nikki Haley's a fraud, and she's exposed herself. Put the woke counter again for DeSantis. Too many counters. All right. Is the audio good? How's the audio?
Now,
everything good?
Great to be back at Grandview. Thanks, CNN. So, I heard the other day
someone
say that Caitlin Collins had some basketball skills. Now, I don't know if that was a mistake or not, but I know in Iowa they have a Caitlin Clark. So I just wanted to give you this as a memento.
Bruh!
And just respectfully, if the game's on the line and we need a buzzer beater, I'm going with Clark over Collins. So,
rest assured, her free throws and her threes are much better than mine,
cringe.
Governor. But thank you so much for that. Thank you, and good luck
what
to
was
her.
That? What's the point of that?
On Friday night, Governor. Thank you for being here. Obviously, as you know, just 45 minutes away from here at Perry High School, earlier today in Perry, Iowa, there was a shooting. A 6th grader was killed. 5 others were injured, including a school administrator, on their first day back after winter break. We've gotten some questions from voters here in the audience about this tonight. So first tonight, to start off, I want to turn to Jennifer Lemon, who is here. She is a child care provider from Des Moines, a Republican who says that she is undecided in this race. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. Go ahead.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
What just happened?
I'm well.
I don't know.
Thank you. In light of the shooting today, and without taking away any gun rights, what would you do to address the issue?
Good question.
Well, first, our hearts go out to the people of Perry. I've been able to spend a lot of time in Dallas County. It's great folks there. To have these kids go back the first day after Christmas break, this is a tragedy. To lose a 6th grader. My wife and I, we have a 1st grader, a kindergartner, and a preschooler. God. And so when you send your kids to school, you want to be focused on the academics and the activities.
Yeah,
the physical safety should not be an issue with our schools, and parents need to have confidence in that. So I think what we'll do is support efforts like I did in Florida. When I became governor, it was on the heels of the worst school shooting that we had in the history of the state, and I was charged with implementing reforms to be able to provide security for schools. So we've done everything, but like school resource officers,
yeah, but I still want to hear what they have to say.
But also help identify students that are exhibiting really problematic behavior. One of the tragedies that came out of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas back in Florida was that before people even had identified who did it, most of the people in that community already knew who did it because there were so many warning signs. We're getting more information about what happened in Perry, but it seems like this student had some serious problems. We do things like behavioral threat assessment to take this seriously so that there can be an intervention. If they're committing criminal acts, to hold them accountable. And if they have mental health problems, you got to deal with it.
Governor, I'm glad that you brought up the laws that are in Florida, because right now a state senator from Florida wants to eliminate that mandatory 3-day waiting period to buy a rifle or a shotgun in your state. That is one of the changes that, if it was eliminated, would undo something that was put in place after the Parkland shooting. Do you support eliminating that waiting period?
I think that the background check should be instant. You have the thing. Somebody goes. You can run them.
That's a good answer.
And you can see if there's a criminal conviction. If they're a felon, then obviously they ping. If they have mental health adjudication, then of course they're going to ping.
That part, that's
but
where
I
the
think
things
you want it to
become
be
a problem.
instant background
because what's
checks.
considered
And
mental
so that's
health.
what I support.
I
so you
support
don't support the
concept,
3-day waiting period?
I think it should be instant.
You'd be okay with eliminating it?
I think it should be instant background checks. This is somebody that people that go, law-abiding citizens exercising their rights. You shouldn't have to be on a mandatory waiting period. instant checks
But why
will do the job.
why is the law in Florida
I want to turn
that?
to another voter and some other issues that are here
That's
on
a good
the
answer,
minds of
though. I'll
Iowa
give it to
voters
him.
tonight.
That was a
This
good
is Kurt
answer.
Ellis. He is an operations coordinator from Grimes, Iowa. A Republican who says he is undecided. Kurt, thank you for being here. What's your question for the governor?
Good evening, Governor. Donald Trump is leading by significant margins in polling, particularly here in Iowa. What do you consider a winning performance in Iowa? And what is your strategy past Iowa?
That's good.
Well,
That's
Kurt,
good. Good
nobody's
question.
leading until you guys get to vote. So I actually believe in the
What?
process. I've gone to all 99 counties. I've shown up. I've answered questions.
It
You'll
doesn't
see me on
count
the
until
debate
you've-
stage next
bruh.
week here in Iowa on January 10th. Donald Trump's not willing to show up on the debate stage. Has he come to communities and answered
my
questions? Has he
goodness.
gone to all 99 counties? Heck, has he even gone to 9 counties? That's not the way to do it. So voters get to make this decision. Don't let the media
could've
pick
answered
the
that so many
candidate.
different ways.
Let voters decide. And
mentioned.
this is a long process. I've put in a lot
You're
of
not
time in
gonna
Iowa
win.
because I think doing
Dude.
99 counties is the way it's done here. People want to be able
Yeah,
to
but
ask
you're
you
dealing with
questions.
Trump.
They want to be able to shake your
Trump is
hand.
not your average
So I've done
politician.
it because that's what Iowans expect, to do the full Grassley.
Iowa should
We're going to be
create
doing a
100th
lot of
county.
stuff in
I
the
agree.
subsequent
For
states.
the memes.
You got to win a massive amount of delegates, and we're going to be in a situation where we're going to be competing, and it's going to be a long, arduous process, but Iowa starts it off. You guys get to make the decision. Don't
You
let
guys
the
are the
media
real
or the
heroes.
pundits make the
You're the
decision.
real hero.
Vote for who you
You're
think
the
could be
real
the best
hero.
president of the United States. And
Orange
I'm
man
here to
bad.
tell you the
Trump's
choice,
up by
I think, is
50.
clear. Donald Trump is running for his issues. Nikki Haley's running for her donors' issues.
shut up.
I'm running for
Haley, you're
your
right about
issues.
Haley, but
I'm running for your
really-
family's issues, and I'm running to turn this country around.
We're talking to the candidates.
Governor,
Well, it's being cringe.
Kurt mentioned how the former president is leading significantly in polls. I know you dismissed some of those polls and say you want to see what happens on the 15th. You just referenced what you believe Trump is running on this time. You say his own issues. And you've said before that you don't think he's the same candidate that he was in 2016. What should voters in Iowa know about what you think a second Trump presidency, a second Trump term would look like if they do pick him over you?
Well, so here, look, we saw what happened in the midterms in 2022. Remember, they said that this was going to be a red wave. You had a red wave in Iowa and Florida because Governor Reynolds led and because I led, and we won historic victories. The rest of the Republicans in the Senate and House crashed and burned. Donald Trump's candidates, hand-picked candidates, lost because the Democrats have a playbook that they can run. It was effective in 2018. It was effective in 2020, 21, 22,
Trump
and even
saved
this year,
you,
2023. So don't
What an
repeat
arrogant
that.
asshole,
The Democrats
honestly.
want Trump to be the candidate. They are going to talk about
What?
all the legal stuff. January 6th.
They
That
want
will be
Trump
what the
to be the
election will be
candidate,
about.
bruh.
You don't want it to be a referendum on Trump and the past. You want it to be a referendum on Biden's failures.
It is a referendum
on
on
our
Biden.
positive vision for this country. I offer that. And oh, by the way, you need somebody that can serve 2 terms. You're going to go in there as
New
a
York
lame
doesn't
duck
exist,
president,
yeah.
even if you could get elected. I don't think that that's how it works there. We need a change agent in Washington. We need somebody that's going to go in
nobody
there,
gets Reynolds,
actually
yeah.
unwind the bureaucracy, which Trump promised to do and didn't do. We need a president that's going to stop the border invasion by building a wall, which Trump promised to do but didn't do. We also need somebody that's going to be willing to deport illegal aliens. Donald Trump said he would, in 2016, he'd have the largest deportation in history. He deported less than Barack Obama did in Obama's first term. I will actually get the job done, and I will hold the Mexican drug cartels accountable for the carnage that they're causing in this country. They are killing tens of thousands of our fellow Americans. When I'm president, we're going to designate them as foreign terrorist organizations. Donald Trump had an opportunity to do that. He didn't do it. I will.
Well, Governor, I'm glad you brought up immigration because we actually have a question on immigration from our next questioner. This is Joseph Howe. He is a business consultant from Des Moines who is the former Iowa Libertarian state chair. He now says he is a Republican and he's undecided. Joseph?
One of these clowns.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Governor, almost all illegal migrants crossing the border carry a backpacker bag, and very few are cartel members. If you order to shoot on sight, now accepting women and children, how many innocent people are you willing to have killed to kill one low-level drug mule?
Well, Joseph, thanks for that, but I take issue with the premise of that. When you're conducting military operations, you're not just doing that willy-nilly. I'm the only one running for president that actually has served overseas in a war in the Iraq campaign. They didn't wear uniforms. You had to positively identify. People would have hostile actions, hostile intent.
All right, that's a good
and
answer.
then you would be able to engage. So it's going to be the same type of thing. It's not going to be, and it's anything like we do even domestically when a police officer would engage. So it's not going to be done the way the media is saying it's going to be done. But I will tell you this, I've been down there. The cartel will cut holes in the actual border wall, and they will come through with fentanyl. So my question to you and to other critics who don't say, how many fentanyl deaths are enough? Are we just supposed to sit here and let this happen? I think a president
I know what you're trying to go for, but that's not an answer.
I think you have a responsibility to fight back against these people. I am sick and tired of seeing the carnage in this country. And in my travels through Iowa, I've met angel parents, people that have lost kids to fentanyl overdose. And a lot of
you could have
times,
said
these
so
are
many
not
different
drug
things,
addicts.
and you're blowing
These
it.
are maybe a college student that is stressed out during exams, so they buy a pill thinking it's going to help them get through the night, and it turns out it's laced with fentanyl. That could be enough to poison that student to death. And so this is shattering families, it's shattering communities. The people in D.C., they just shrug their shoulder. They could care less about what's going on. Well, I care about this. I care about defending American communities and American families. And so, yes, they have killed more Americans than all the terrorist groups in this world combined over the last 5 years.
Yeah, why
when
do
is
that?
enough enough?
But you do think you would have the intelligence to do that?
Yes,
I think that's the question.
Absolutely.
Yes. What was that voice crack?
We have surveillance. We have drones. We have intel. We have a whole bunch of stuff. This is something, it's a matter of will. We can do it if we want to do it. And I would note, I was the candidate that came out to do it. Now you have other candidates that are saying they want to do this. Some had opportunities to do this in the past. Others had not even supported things like border walls in the past. So we've been a leader on this issue. We're going to continue to do it.
Who started
but
that
here's
trend,
the thing
by
as
the way?
Republicans. How many years have we been talking about the border in various iterations? It's been going on my entire adult life. Isn't it about time we had a president that solved it once and for all? I will solve it once and for all.
A question on immigration as well, because this is something that you've said. You said that you would take action
What was
to
that
end the
answer? I don't
idea
get what he was
of
trying to
birthright
say.
citizenship for kids of undocumented immigrants. Does that mean ending birthright citizenship? What is that? What exactly does that mean?
So the 14th Amendment obviously applies to U.S. citizens. It was meant to overturn Dred Scott versus Sanford, which is one of the worst Supreme Court cases in history, to ensure that African Americans were citizens, in spite of what Dred Scott had said, the decision. Now, it was never the intent to say, you come illegally across the border, have a kid, and all of a sudden the kid is an American citizen. That creates an anchor in the society so that you then can't deport the illegal aliens who came in. It's an incentive to come illegally. That was not the intention of that. So yes, we support American citizens, obviously. But when people are coming illegally, they do not have a birthright at that point. That'll get litigated by the Supreme Court. But I'm convinced the court has never actually addressed that issue. And I think we would win on the law because that was not what the 14th Amendment was intended to do.
That would be an executive order, and then you expect that it would be legally challenged?
Sure, of course it would be legally challenged.
Okay. I do want to go to...
And by the way, on this,
go ahead.
Donald Trump ran in 2016 saying he would do exactly what I just said. Did he ever sign his name to an executive order when he promised the voters that he was going to do it? Never signed it. What is he now telling people in Iowa this time around? He says he's going to do the same thing that he didn't do the first 4 years. I mean, sometimes you can say Congress stymied you, all this other stuff. All he had to do was put his John Hancock on a piece of paper, and he did not do it. So, look, I mean, when I tell you I'm going to do something, you can take it to the bank. I'm going to do it.
Are you saying... We've got another voter question, but just... It sounds like you're saying Republican voters can't trust Donald Trump.
Well, what I'm saying is if you've run before, promised things, didn't deliver, and then you're running on the same things, wouldn't it be reasonable?
Who does that sound like to you?
Gee, I don't know that I can take that to the bank going forward.
Who does that sound like to you?
The fact that he's campaigning on something, that does not mean that he would actually follow through on it.
We have Mary Lou here, Mary Lou Nosko. She is a retired Army officer and educator from Nevada, Iowa. She says that she is a Republican who is undecided. Mary Lou, thank you for being here tonight. What's your question for the governor?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for your service, Governor.
You too, likewise.
I think only a veteran really can appreciate the sacrifice that you and your family made. My question is, I have a 33-year-old son who is a college graduate and a professional, and he feels he will never be able to purchase a home. Home ownership has long been the major part of the American dream. What do you plan to do as president to make home ownership more accessible to the middle class?
That is a really
thank you for the question, Mary Lou, and thank you for your service to this country. And you're right. Not only
I just can't believe it.
Veterans,
he keeps the Homelander stuff.
Also, a lot of the spouses that have served veterans
That's what he's saying.
Have carried a big load. It's a family effort, and we owe a debt of gratitude to a lot of people. A couple of things we do. One, we need to get interest rates down. The reason why we have high interest rates is because government has borrowed, printed, and spent ungodly sums of money.
That's not going to solve
March of 2020, both parties are responsible for it, and that has driven the interest rates up. Right now, the average price home, your monthly mortgage payment is twice as much as it would have been 5 years ago if you had a mortgage on the average price. So now some of it is home prices have gone up.
It's part of the
reason. A lot
reason,
of it is
like,
because of the
part
interest
of it,
rates.
but not all of it.
The other thing we got to do, we need more housing supply in this country. I actually signed legislation in Florida to green light projects, particularly for workforce housing, because you have a situation where in some parts of the country, if you're a police officer or a teacher or a nurse, you can't afford to live in the community where you work. So we can expect cop staff to commute an hour, hour and a half just to go to some of these areas. And then you have rural communities where there's a deficit of housing as well. So lower interest rates and more housing supply. But if we don't solve this issue, and it's housing is part of it and buying a home, but I think there's larger issues about young people that are working hard, doing everything right, are falling behind. It's almost cost prohibitive to raise kids in this economy. That's taking the American dream away. We got to restore the American dream, and it starts with getting this fiscal house in order. In Florida, I've been governor. We've actually paid down 25% of our state's debt. I've cut taxes every year. Our economy is ranked #1 of all 50 states by CNBC. We lead the nation in net in-migration. Income growth is top of the charts. #1 in education.
What is this about housing?
So we've shown how it's done.
Interest rates
and
build more houses.
Same level
Part
of
of the
success
reason.
to the United States of America.
Oh my goodness.
In Florida as well, you have no income tax. You have said that you believe other states should follow Florida's lead on that. If you were president, would you eliminate the federal income tax?
I mean, can I stop dreaming? I mean, like, wouldn't you like to eliminate the IRS and have, what I would want is, I think I would eliminate the IRS, have a single rate, and just do like a flat tax. I think that would be the ideal tax system to be able to take away the distortions. And what happens is, Florida's a good example of this. We have low tax, and we cut taxes, and yet we attract more investment and our economic base expands. So I run these big budget surpluses where we're paying down debt by lowering rates. I think you look at some of the other states that are high tax states, they tax, they cause businesses to flee and individuals to flee, then they go back to the well and they tax more, and it's like a vicious cycle. So low rates,
taxes,
broad base, ultimately is the best and most conducive to economic growth.
But you would push to eliminate the federal income tax.
I want to eliminate the IRS, and I would like a flat, one single rate, flat tax. Is obviously I would only do it if it was lower taxes for everybody. But that is the ideal tax system.
You could have just said
Governor,
that.
I want to bring in Eric Adey, who is an attorney from Ames, Iowa, a Republican who says that he is undecided in this race. Eric, what's your question?
Governor, I vote primarily based on foreign policy, and my question to you tonight is, should the United States supply Ukraine with more advanced weaponry, including aircraft, with an aim to helping them regain the captured territory, or should we just urge them to accept a partial loss of that territory?
Well, first of all, what we would do is, what are our top national security issues? I would say the top in this country are the border and China.
Are you freaking
and so
kidding
I think
me?
what people in D.C. are doing, they're ignoring those security threats. They've done an awful lot of money to Ukraine,
He's not wrong,
including
but
money paying
answer the
for things like
question.
pensions for bureaucrats, salaries. How is that something that is benefiting the American people? So what I've said about this is, one, we need to bring it to a conclusion. I think Europe needs to do more to meet their NATO obligations. I mean, ultimately, Russia's more of a threat to them than not. But as president, I'll be very clear, because people will talk about you got to do more money there so that they don't invade a NATO country. You know, as president of the United States, NATO will be a red line. Russia will not go after a NATO country when I am president, bar none.
You said bring it to a conclusion. Does that mean end U.S. support for Ukraine?
It means end the conflict. I think we're now in a situation.
But how do you do that?
Biden can't even tell us what the end game is. He will not
He just topped
articulate this.
Ramaswamy and Trump.
And as
That's
somebody
all
that
he
has
did.
served, I think the pitfall of U.S. foreign policy over the past 25 years, really since the Cold War, is getting involved in conflicts where we don't have a clear conception of what we're trying to achieve, or we don't have enough support to be able to actually bring it to a conclusion. So he will not articulate that. And I, as President of the United States, if I'm going to be obligating U.S. resources, I want a clear plan for what we're going to accomplish.
Russia's not going to attack
and
anybody.
I want to make sure that we're going to be able to accomplish that. He
no matter
has
who
not
the
done
president
that.
is, they're not going to attack a NATO country. It's stupid.
Biden's weakness invited a lot of the problems that we're seeing around the world. How he left Afghanistan was a total disgrace. I mean, it leaves a bitter taste in the mouth of veterans who've served over there to see all that weaponry and all that stuff over there just taken by the Taliban, 13 people killed. That was humiliating for this country. But that sent a signal to people like Russia, to Iran, that now is the time to be able to start acting out. When I'm president, it's going to be totally different. You know, we're going to lay down very clear markers, and people are going to know, don't mess with the USA.
But can you articulate what ending this means? I mean, does that mean that because Congress is talking about this right now. Does that mean sending no more U.S. money, no more U.S. weapons to Ukraine?
What it means is bringing it to a situation where Russia is in a box and you're not having wars break out into Europe. That is our interest in this, to not have larger conflicts.
Is this Al
I think
Gore?
part of the problem with some of the people who always want to get
Al
us
Gore
in
just
deeper
show
in these
up with
conflicts is you run the risk of an escalation. I can tell you this, as President of the United States, American service members can take this to the bank. Parents of service members, we are not going to send U.S. troops to fight in Ukraine.
But what about U.S. weapons?
Well, I think Europe should supply the weapons. I'm willing to help Europe within the confines of our overall national security strategy, bring it to a conclusion. Did I just hear that? But we are behind in what we need to do with China.
You're going to help Europe send weapons to
We do not have adequate hard
Ukraine.
power to be able to deter China from going
Then
after
what's
Taiwan
the point?
or breaking out of the first island chain, which they want to do and would have major impacts on this country. And of course, they're doing nothing to secure our own southern border. That border is a threat to this country because hostile people are coming across the southern border. So we need to focus on our house
I know
here.
what you're trying to do,
and what bugs me about what's going on in
question.
D.C. is they ignore problems here in the United States, and they're focusing on things that are halfway around the world. I mean, I think it's an issue, it's an interest, but you can't put that over our own national security on our own borders.
We also have Cheryl Young here with us tonight, Governor. She is
Good
from Winterset, Iowa.
by the way, but
she's a Republican who says that she is supporting you in this race. Cheryl, what's your question?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, should abortion rights be controlled by the federal or the state governments?
Well, thanks for the question, and thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Well, clearly, states have the primary role in this because that's what it was all of American history until 1973. So you have states like Iowa that have enacted heartbeat bill. Florida has enacted a heartbeat bill. Other states have done other things. And so that's just, I think, where the country is right now. So we'll be somebody that will defend particularly the rights of states to be able to enact pro-life protections. Now, you have a difference of opinion in this primary because Donald Trump has said that pro-life protections, even at the state level, are a, quote, terrible thing.
That's not what he said. Oh, bullshit.
Like what Iowa did, the heartbeat bill. Now, this is a guy that was at the March for Life in January of 2020, and he said that all life was a gift from God. He said the unborn was made in the image of God. He said that there should be protections. That's what he was saying when he was president at the March for Life.
But Trump did
now he's saying it's a terrible, terrible thing.
No, he
so
didn't.
How do you reconcile those two views?
That's not what he said.
Did he not believe it at the time? But then to go even further, he actually has said, elevate this issue to the federal government. What he wants to do is find a time. I think he floated like 18 or 20 weeks. Have that be the limit. But then override any protections that states have done that are more than that.
He is so full of it.
That is not going to be advancing the cause of life. And so I think for pro-life voters in Iowa,
that's not
Donald
what Trump
is
said.
taking positions that are way different than what he professed to believe
Funny
when he
enough,
first
you're
ran
making
for
him
president in
seem like
2016.
a moderate on the
Do you think
issue.
Donald Trump is not pro-life?
Of course not. I mean, when you're saying that pro-life protections are a terrible thing, by definition, you are not pro-life. When you say that you want to have a federal law at 18
I'm
weeks
upping
or
the
20
cringe.
weeks that would override
What
a
are you
state
doing?
like Iowa that has enacted pro-life protections, that would mean more abortions, not less
is he
abortions,
frickin'
because
going
very
on
few
about?
abortions are happening that late anyways. So he has flip-flopped on this issue. I don't know if it's because of political convenience or this is all where he always believed in, but here's the thing. Some issues are pretty fundamental. How do you flip-flop on something like the sanctity of life?
That's not what
Pretty
happened.
remarkable to hear you say that, Governor, to say that you don't think Donald Trump is pro-life. You mentioned the bill that was signed in Florida, the 6-week abortion bill that you signed earlier this year. That bill has exceptions, but those exceptions, I want to talk about them, because for rape and incest, a woman would only have up to 15 weeks to get an abortion, and only if the woman brings a police report, a restraining order, medical record, or a court document to her appointment. For fetal abnormality, that exception, it requires the sign-off from 2 doctors. Do you think that those limits are reasonable and that women agree that those limits are reasonable?
So the Florida
Rob is
legislature
burning down the
enacted
kitchen right
a
now.
heartbeat bill with those exceptions. You know, not every state has done that. Iowa, I don't think, has done that. Some of the other states have not. But those exceptions are in law. I know those are issues that a lot of people have strong feelings about. And so I signed the legislation with those exceptions in law. Rape, incest, life of the mother, victims of human trafficking, as well as the really terrible situations where you have the fetal abnormality. So that is what I think the people wanted, and that was what the law reflects.
But you personally signed it into law. You could have vetoed it if you didn't agree with it. So do you think those are reasonable exceptions?
Those are exceptions that have been talked about for many, many years. And the legislature put those in very carefully. And yes, of course, I think they're reasonable.
You did sign a 15-week bill before that. It didn't have exceptions for rape or incest. If you are president, you've said that you would support a 15-week ban.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Hold on, did he attack Trump for this?
The reason why it wasn't is because there was no reason required at all for up to the 15 weeks. And so that's why they didn't put it in. When you're talking about a heartbeat, it's just a different, there's a prudential judgment that the legislatures are making. But I've said I support exceptions and would support exceptions.
Yeah.
I want to bring in Ronald Lanel, a Medicare insurance agent and a retired farmer from Ankeny, Iowa. Thank you for being here, Ronald. He's a Republican who says that he is supporting Nikki Haley in this race. He's also a Vietnam veteran, so thank you for your service as well. What's your question for the governor?
Respect.
First off, from one veteran to another, I respectfully thank you for your service to our nation.
Likewise, thank you. Appreciate you.
Never mind what I said.
Please give me your definition of patriotism.
Sort of Vietnam, you automatically.
Did the January 6th insurrectionists display patriotism as some of them claim they did?
No, of course not. I mean, that was not a good day for the country. I think the media has taken that, and I think the left has taken that and really tried to politicize it, but it was not a good day for the country. You know, patriotism to me is willing to put yourself out there and put service above self. I mean, you served. Anyone that serves in the military, they're writing a check payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. You don't know where they're going to send you. You don't know what you're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that, you are pursuing a higher purpose. And so to me, that's noble. We've had a lot of problems in the military now with recruiting. Recruiting's at a generational low
stuff, I'm gonna leave,
in this country
or I
since
might,
the Vietnam War. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, and I will rectify that. But part of it is we haven't had a president elected who's been a veteran since 1988. A president that served in a foreign conflict. So I would be the first to do that. And part of what I'm going to do, I'm going to take out all the political, the woke, all the nonsense out of the military's commander-in-chief day one. But we are going to hold up military service as being something that's a noble cause. You know, Ronald Reagan was inspiring when he would talk about some people spend a lifetime not knowing whether they made a difference, but a U.S. Marine doesn't have that problem. John F. Kennedy said people can look back on their life with a great deal of satisfaction saying, I served in the United States Navy. And so this is something that I think is very important. So I will be an advocate for military service. I will talk about that being a worthy endeavor for young people to pursue. And we are going to solve this problem. We are going to get more people signing up.
You're running for president, obviously.
It's not because of wokeness.
The limits that you think you would have as president. The former president keeps claiming that he can't be prosecuted for anything that happened while he was in office because he has presidential immunity.
Yes.
If you are the nominee and if you're elected president, do you think you would have blanket presidential immunity?
Well, look, I mean, I'm going to, you take an oath to support and defend the Constitution.
Ron?
I did it when I commissioned as an officer.
Be careful what you
Anyone that
say
serves
here.
in the military does it. I took an oath as governor. As president, you're taking an oath to take care that the laws are faithfully executed and to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So I'm going to wield my authority with that obligation in mind. And if I don't think something is constitutional, I am duty-bound to oppose it. That's just the nature of the job. And so I make constitutional judgments all the time. Doesn't mean a court always agrees with it, but I'm going through that analysis. So, for example, if Congress sends me a piece of legislation that I think violates the Constitution, even if I think it's a good idea policy-wise, I am duty-bound to veto it, and I will do that. So you're going to see an energetic executive.
Bro?
I'm going to wield Article 2 power to the fullest extent to be able to advance the agenda that I'm running on. And we're going to be able to deliver big victories. But that oath means something to me, and I will satisfy that oath of office. And by the way, you look about what's going on now. Joe Biden took an oath to take care that the laws be faithfully executed.
Did he just imply
Is there
what I think he
anybody
just
in
did?
this room that thinks he is satisfying that oath when it comes to our southern border?
Trump? It's what
I don't think so.
But what about blanket presidential immunity, that a president can do whatever they want? Do you agree with that? If you're abiding by the Constitution, none of that is going to matter at that point. So follow the law, follow the Constitution. This stuff gets into the weeds legally about what can happen to a president when they leave office based on conduct that may or may not have been official. It's not for me to adjudicate that. I can just tell you this. If you nominate me, I'll get elected, I'll serve. And we won't even be discussing these issues. We'll be discussing your issues. You're not going to have to worry about my conduct. I'll conduct myself in a way you can be proud of. I'll conduct myself in a way you can tell your kids, that's somebody that you should emulate. And we will have success as a result of that. A lot of clear references, obviously, to the former president. You have said that you believe his indictments have distorted the primary. Do you think that he's leading in this race because of his indictments?
So look, I mean, there's things that happen when you're running. There's things you can control. I can control how I answer your questions. I can control how hard I'm going to work. Like I've chosen to do the 99 counties. Other candidates haven't. There's other things you can't control. How these things happen, how they're played in the media, all this other stuff. Clearly, it's had an impact. But what I would tell primary voters is whatever may be beneficial in the primary doesn't mean it's beneficial in the general election. And I think a 2024 election where the Democrats get to run against a candidate that is going through all this stuff, that is going to give the Democrats an advantage. Don't have to agree with any of the stuff that was done. That's just the reality. And we end up in a situation where we're putting the future of the Republican Party and the future of the nation, perhaps, in the hands of 12 jurors in heavily Democrat D.C., which is likely to be a very stacked left-wing jury, that if they somehow convict, then the Democrats are going to win the election. Why do we want to even go down that road? Let's focus on your issues. Let's focus on Biden's failures. Let's focus on how we're going to be able to turn this country around. I'll be somebody that's focused on that. But then even more importantly, as president, I'll be disciplined and determined to deliver on all those things.
This guy is unbelievable.
About me. Heck, when I'm not out there doing the job, I've got young kids. My wife and I will be back home. We'll be doing stuff with our family. That's going to be the extent of what we're doing. We are going to be laser focused on your issues.
Governor, stick around. We have many more voters' questions for you. We'll be right back in just a moment with more.
My goodness. What the hell was that? I'm baffled. I am stunned at what I just heard. Okay, let's do a poll for how DeSantis is doing so far. Rate DeSantis tonight. This might be the worst town hall I've ever heard him do. This is awful. A/B, hold on. C, D, F. I mean, this is just sad. Nearly 57% say F. Is that the highest we ever had? Have we ever had this many people say F before? What he said about Trump is ridiculous. So here's what I will say about the abortion stuff. He never said abortion restrictions are evil. He just said he thought that a heartbeat ban went too far. That's all he said. And this asshole's making it sound like, oh, he said all restriction is bad. But then, when Trump supports a restriction federally, he said that's going to override the state laws. DeSantis said in the debate just 5 minutes ago, I support the exact same bill as Trump does. What? I'm baffled. Oh, and Nikki Haley's right after this. Yeah, so we have a half an hour more of this crap than Nikki Haley's going to pull up. Unbelievable. I mean, how can anyone defend DeSantis tonight? You could have said, right? So I'm eating something, by the way, so if I sound off, I'm eating something. But either way, you could have said that, oh, Trump, he helped us get Roe versus Wade overturned, but he isn't, the most conservative on the issue, or say, maybe he's a bit too lenient. That's one thing. But to say that he is not pro-life, that he's pro-choice and he flip-flopped on it, when did Trump flip-flop on the issue? Look at this. This might be the highest percent of people that said F before. That's higher than Christie. It's usually like 50, not 58. Trump isn't pro-life, ahem, Roe versus Wade. Yeah. Surely Trump's not pro-life for that. This is just pathetic. Who is saying A/B to Sims in the chat? Yeah, it's a 5 to Sims in the chat. That's all that's saying this is good. Listen, you could attack so many things against Trump, but this is not it. Him not being pro-life? Trump is he's the only one that understands, hey, let's focus on late term, and we're back.
With Governor DeSantis.
We're back for this godforsaken town hall.
You talk about your family a lot when you're on the campaign trail. You often see your wife, Casey DeSantis, your children with you. I want to ask you about a loss that you experienced in your life with your sister, your family. In 2015, your younger sister, Christina, died suddenly from a pulmonary embolism. I know she was 30 years old. She was about to get married. How did that loss change you?
Well, look, I mean, when you go through having somebody that's in your immediate family, I mean, that's the loss that I think hits you the most. And part of it was just how sudden it was. She was living a great life. I mean, she was having fun, and then she got checked into the hospital. She seemed to be stable.
I did not know about that.
And then a couple days later,
I knew he had a sister. I didn't know she died.
One, I think about all the things we've done since then. She would have been a great aunt to her her nieces and nephews. I would have liked for them to have been able to get to know her. She obviously would have done a lot of great things with her life. She would have been potentially involved in some of the things we've been doing. But what it shows you is don't take anything for granted. You just never know what's going to happen. And so if there's ever a time when you feel you need to do something, don't just sit back on the sidelines. You go in and you do, because you never know what chances you're going to have in the future. So don't take it for granted. Tell your people close to you that you love them, and just try to live your best life every single day. And understand ultimately every day is a gift from God.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that probably resonates with a lot of people here, Governor. We also have more voter questions with us tonight. I want to now get to Bob Peters, who is a retired small business owner from Ankeny. He's a Republican who says he is leaning towards supporting Nikki Haley. What's your question for the Governor?
What's up all these Nikki Haley
Thank you for being
boomers?
here, Governor.
They're all the
we
same.
Have seen many instances of poor choices from the current administration, such as the before-mentioned border policies, the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, with no effort to correct those poor choices.
Such an easy question,
even well-intended plans can fail sometimes. Can you give me an example where, as governor, you implemented a plan that did fail and how you corrected that?
That's a good question, actually.
You know, I think if you look back what happened with COVID, I mean, the large story is Donald Trump and Anthony Fauci plunged this country into lockdown. Florida led the way in dragging this country out of lockdown. And part of the reason we did that is because I looked at some of the things that were recommended that we had done. So, for example, not have elective procedures at hospitals. They said there's going to be too many people in the hospital. Well, I do this for 3 or 4 weeks, and our hospitals were empty. So I said, you know what? The data doesn't support that. We're opening it up. We protected nursing homes. And we've got 4,000 long-term care facilities. We didn't want it ravaging. We did testing. We limited people going in to not have a big outbreak, which did save lives.
Derangement syndrome.
But those restrictions carried on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then you had to start balancing, okay, this virus is significant. We obviously are sensitive with elderly people, but shouldn't we be giving them the decision-making about having family visitation and all this stuff? Are we as the government going to make that decision for them? You know, so I made the decision. I think we were the first state in the country to say, you know what? Let them make these decisions about this because there is more to life than just one virus. The human connection that people long for.
I mean, he's not wrong, but
a lady
you have to
named
mention
Mary
Trump
Daniel
for everything.
Trump
caused
Florida.
this. Trump caused
and so
that.
in those initial weeks, you know, she wasn't able to go in to visit her husband, who was in a memory care facility.
I can't believe
so she decided to apply to get a job to work in the facility so that she could have interaction with them. And so she came and talked about her story. She talked about how while people were very concerned about the virus's effect on elderly people, that we had to figure out a way to do it. So you know what? That really touched me.
Republican Party actually thinks Trump is a
and
change.
so we did it, and we made the change, and I think that was a good change. And we ended up doing, and not that we never restricted hospitals, but the hospitals throughout this country were denying visitation for people. These end-of-life moments, you're having to spend on a FaceTime or on an iPad instead of having your loved ones there. That was overkill.
And that left
these are tough issues anyways, but you have a little bit of sense of closure if you're there and you can say goodbye. If you can hug your loved one more time. If you can do those things that require that human connection. And that was taken away from so many people. So we did legislation in Florida called No Patient Left Alone Act. You have a right to have your family members present with you when you're in the hospital, particularly when you're in those sensitive end-of-life situations. That's the right thing to do, and we made sure that we were looking at the whole picture and making sure that we had this very important human interaction respected and protected.
That question about, you know, being governor.
I'm so confused. I don't know what's happening anymore.
Whether or not you make mistakes while you're on the job. There's another governor in this race, Chris Christie. He recently said something about a mistake that he believes he made while he was governor of New Jersey. He says that was on gay marriage, that he was wrong. He admits it, and he says that true leaders, you know, admit that when they are wrong. You have previously said that the definition of marriage is exclusively between a man and a woman. I'm curious, is that still how you feel today?
So
don't mess up.
That's just what marriage is with the church, and I respect the Supreme Court's decision. We've abided by that in Florida, even though our Constitution defines it as between a man and a woman. But I think what we need to recognize is, you know, you are going to have people try to wield power against our religious institutions and try to marginalize them simply by upholding the biblical definition of marriage. And so I'm going to protect those religious institutions to be able to do what has always been done in terms of how they consider marriage as a sacrament. So in terms of the church,
he's doubling down on it.
That's just what it is. Now, in terms of the Supreme Court's decision with civil law, you know, the state, we had a different policy. This was before I was governor. And so the state of Florida's respected that.
This is what you're
focusing on.
We've
got another voter here with us, Governor, tonight. This
is
Trey
law
Wellman,
settled,
a student
that's it.
at Iowa State
You did not have to
University
mention the rest
from
of
Ames,
that.
who grew up on a family farm. He is the vice chair of the Iowa Federation of College Republicans. He says he's undecided. He's not going to bring up Alabama football. Go ahead, Trey.
So growing up on a family farm and studying agriculture and rural policy at Iowa State, this is something that we've talked an awful lot about. For many years, rural areas have been declining in population, which can lead to poverty, limited opportunity, and higher prices. What do you think are the reasons for this, and what will you do as president to build up rural communities and their population?
Really good question.
And you said you're Iowa State?
Iowa State, yes, sir.
Okay. I was at the game this year. It was a tough one. But you have a lot of Florida high school players on the roster, so I appreciate it. And, of course, the governor here is an Iowa State grad, so I didn't say anything cross about Iowa State. My son, incidentally, so you all in Iowa have this machine shed restaurant.
DeSantis,
My wife and I, we do like Cracker Barrel with the kids. We were going to do that, and I was like, we got to try Machine Shed. My son's 5 years old. He's like a sports nut. He got a checkered board modeled after the Iowa State football field. So he now loves Iowa State because he has that checkerboard.
That doesn't seem normal.
He also has gotten to see the Iowa Stadium.
He becomes a fan because you visited Iowa
game,
once?
with some supporters in Ankeny over the weekend, and so they got him a nice Iowa shirt. He's got Iowa socks
answer the
and
question.
Everything. I was on the campaign trail with him the morning of the Iowa-Michigan Big Ten game. And I didn't rehearse this with him. He came up on the stage with me. I have the microphone. And I said, hey, buddy, who's going to win Iowa versus Michigan? And I'm moving the mic down to him. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, my gosh, if this kid says Michigan, he's going to get booed here in Iowa at 5 years old. He was so clutch. He's like, Iowa. So he was really excited about that. Now, to get to your question.
He's using freaking Gen Z terms.
Rural communities are part of the backbone of America.
After all that,
you
answer the question, everybody.
Traveling to all 99 counties in Iowa. I've also been able to see it in my home state of Florida. I mean, some people that aren't from Florida, you think South Beach, or you think the attractions in Orlando, or you think if you're in the Midwest, a lot of these places in South Florida, great areas. But, we have a lot of rural counties in our state. I was the first governor to do public events in all 67 Florida counties. There were people that had never seen a governor before in some of our rural counties. We've worked to do rural broadband, infrastructure, things that are really, really significant. So a couple things. One, I understand the importance of agriculture for our country. It's not just an economic issue. Food security is a national security issue. And I think we're more secure and better when we have family farms that are viable and that can pass that down from generation to generation. I don't want everything to be massive corporations. We need to eliminate the death tax on these family farms so that they can pass it down without getting taxed. We also need to recognize that the cost of government when bureaucracies run amok, like they say, in Iowa, you had to go to the Supreme Court. There's a puddle on your property, and that's waters of the United States. EPA can come in and have federal jurisdiction. No way. That is not right. But that use of bureaucracy benefits the entrenched big companies at the expense of the smaller companies. So I think part of the answer for rural America is
why did I ever support this guy?
And the emphasis on that. And I think that's the backbone of whether our economy is going to succeed or not. You got these guys on Wall Street, Silicon Valley. That's fine. But if we don't have those small businesses and these local communities that are able to succeed, we're not going to have the American dream.
We have another voter here tonight, Chad Ryan, a hospice chaplain from Huxley, Iowa, a Republican who says that he is undecided in this race. Chad, what is your question for Governor DeSantis?
Governor DeSantis, thank you for being here. I would like to hear you answer this question in a spirit of civility and humility. If you become president, what is one aspect of President Biden's leadership that you would hope to emulate?
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Good. That's actually interesting.
Look, we've got a myriad of policy differences, and I think the results have been very, very poor. So I think on the policy, you're going to see differences. I'll tell you this though, we had a hurricane hit, Category 5, Hurricane Ian in Southwest Florida. Some of you know because some of you have been down there. And it devastated Southwest Florida. It knocked out a bridge to Pine Island. It knocked out the causeway going to Sanibel. We had millions and millions of people without power. Now, we had a great response. We had everyone lined up. Quickest power restoration in history, search and rescue, all these things. Democrat in the White House with the media who would love to do it. He could have tried to politicize it, and I'll give him credit. He didn't try to politicize it. I think when you have situations where there's national tragedies or disasters, trying to politicize it doesn't work. You got to put the people first. And I will notice, with respect to the media, the national media, they were down there. They wanted to make it an issue politically. I mean, I was running for re-election. That's what they wanted to do. When they're asking and people are saying, oh, my gosh, they had all these rescues. All the power went on in record time. We even rebuilt the bridge to Pine Island. People said it was going to take 6 months.
We got breaking news on that.
We took control of it at the state level. We rebuilt it in 3 days. Once they saw, the national media saw that things were going well and that people were appreciative of the response, you couldn't find national media outlets in Florida if you had a search warrant. They did not have a story. Their story was to try to create
Nobody wants to hear about it 24/7.
And to try to demean the response. So that's just the reality. But I will say this. The White House under Biden, they worked with us
DeSantis is the type of guy to
put the people
Twilight
first. And as president, when we have these national disasters, I don't care if it's a Republican governor like Kim Reynolds, who I'm very close with, or a liberal governor like Newsom, who I've got some differences with. When you have these situations, leaders got to lead, and you got to put politics aside.
I think we're always happy when disaster responses go well, Governor. We've got another voter here, Dianna Bosen. She is a psychiatrist from West Des Moines, a Republican who says that she is undecided in this race. What is your question for the governor, Dianna?
Undecided.
Hi, Governor DeSantis.
Hello.
I have a question for you on mental health. Lack of adequate health insurance, which covers diagnosis and treatment of mental health disorders, is a significant problem for millions of Americans.
Ooh.
What are your plans for addressing
Actually,
this issue at the federal level?
Well,
on the
thank you,
nose
Deanna.
healthcare
I think this
question.
is a huge issue. And this is an issue that in every corner of Iowa, people are asking about. I mean, this is not just something where a few people are talking about it, because we've seen this issue all across the country. We're going to do a couple things. One, we're going to support efforts like we did in Florida to provide more mental health resources in our schools. You know, sometimes there's a stigma about seeking help. My wife, the First Lady of Florida, has launched a program to focus it more on resiliency. And it's something that athletes, famous people have gotten behind and talked about. And it's created, I think, a lot of positive feedback with that. One thing we're not going to allow, though, in the schools, or we shouldn't allow, is the politicization of mental health, or to try to use mental health to advance an agenda. And unfortunately, you see examples of this. There's like woke ideology in some of this. Can we please not try to politicize everything in this country? So I think for the youth, I think it's important. The other thing I think is really important, we need to do a better job for our veterans. We have 22 suicides a day still with veterans. And as somebody who served post 9/11, we didn't have a draft. You put a huge burden on a very small percentage of this country. People did multiple deployments, Marines, Army, Special Forces. That is not normal to be deploying that much. You are going to come back. People are going to have invisible wounds of war. We do good about seeing if somebody has a physical wound. We haven't done as well about those invisible wounds. So how do you deal with it? The VA ultimately is not going to be able to solve this problem by itself. It's too big a bureaucracy. It's too big a bureaucracy. It's too cumbersome. I'm going to fire a lot of people in the VA. I'm going to have accountability. They need to do a better job for the veterans. But we're going to do like we did in Florida, where we're going to take a model that my wife started with respect to welfare benefits. We're going to apply it to veterans benefits. Something like a care portal. Veteran goes in. Maybe they have post-traumatic stress. Okay, the VA can do what they want, but they put that in this portal. We're going to invite veterans groups, charities, churches, businesses, individual volunteers, people that want to help the veterans. It's going to go out. Guess what you're going to see? You're going to see these folks come. They're going to offer very quick help. Sometimes it's mental health services where we have veterans clinics around this country. I've got charities in Florida that train service dogs to be able to help veterans who have symptoms of post-traumatic stress. You know what? The suicide rate goes down.
Well, once
Maybe
in a while,
it's something as simple as somebody that lives in the neighborhood that's part of this portal. They say that this veteran's having a tough time. Maybe they just go to his home and say, you know what, I just want to see if you're okay. Can I take you out to lunch? That can be something, just the fact that you show you care, that can be enough to avoid a suicide right there. But the bureaucracy's not going to save us. We need to use the VA as a conduit for all these other great resources, because in every part of Iowa and in every part of Florida, and I think most parts of the United States, people value the service of these veterans and they want to help. We just got to link the veteran to all the services that can be utilized and all the resources that are out there.
Governor, we've got another voter question for you. This is Tamara Thomas, a mother and grandmother from Van Meter, Iowa, a Republican who is also undecided in this race. Tamara, what's your question for the governor?
What do you think is your biggest strength that you have if you are voted to be our next president?
Is it Tamara?
Tamara, you got it.
Tamara, okay. Well, thank you for the question. Van Meter, Iowa, interesting. As a young kid who liked baseball, one day in Dunedin, Florida, where I grew up, there was a famous guy from Van Meter that was there signing autographs named Bob Feller, one of the fastest pitchers ever. But, you know, when World War II, it interrupted his career. Most of these ball players were part of, like, entertaining. They could just play ball and entertain the troops.
Becoming Chris Christie.
Nope, I'm going to war. Serve in combat and serve with distinction. Great American.
What does that have to do about what makes you a good president?
Look, I think that
now you're answering it.
Is that if I tell you I'm going to do something, I don't just say that flippantly. I'm not just saying it to win an election. There are things I could be promising that would probably get me some more votes that I know I couldn't deliver on. So if I tell you I'm going to do something, you take it to the bank, we are going to deliver on it. I'm the only one running for president that has delivered on 100% of my promises. In fact, I over-delivered on what I promised. How often have you elected somebody president that has over-delivered on their promises? Not very often. And I'll fight for you. All the people that are causing these problems, I'm the only one running that have beaten these people, whether it's the teachers union with school choice, whether it's beating Fauci on COVID, whether it's beating people like Soros on crime, whether it's beating the Democrats ensuring election integrity, while it's beating the left and banning China from buying land. On issue after issue, I've delivered results. Leadership is not about entertainment. Leadership is not about showmanship. Leadership is about articulating a vision, implementing that vision, and delivering results for the people that you represent. I will be results focused.
Governor, we've had a lot of great voter questions here tonight. Obviously, the caucus is just 11 days away. You said previously that you believe if Donald Trump does not win Iowa, that he'll say the caucuses were stolen. What if Republican voters believe him?
Well, no, they're not. I think Iowans know that this is an important process. I think Iowans know there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's going to be done very well. You've got a great state party. You've got a lot of great people. People are like, hold on. You just have honest people here. This is, I've been traveling around all 99 counties.
Bro, look what
Ted
Cruz
and Ben Carson. I want to hear how are we going to be able to do it? There's a lot of pessimism out there. But I can tell you this, meeting Iowans in every corner of this state, I see people that are patriotic, hardworking, God-fearing. This is the backbone of this country, and this is the formula to be able to reverse the decline of this country. We can do it. Decline is a choice. We have it within our power to take this country in a different direction and to make sure that we are not the first generation of Americans to turn over to our kids and grandkids an America less prosperous and less free than the one we inherited. I'm not going to sit idly by and watch the managed decline of the United States of America.
Thank you, Governor DeSantis. Thank you to all of the voters who asked questions here. Stay right here because coming up next on this stage, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley's next. Okay, that was awful. I don't know what to say to that. Okay. We still got Nikki Haley to go through, but before I forget, if anybody got any super chats or whatever, send them now because if Nikki Haley's as bad as DeSantis, we may cut the stream early. I'm not saying we will, but rate DeSantis's performance tonight. That was painful. That was one of the worst town halls I think I've ever seen. This cycle, I should say. I mean, what was that? What the hell was that? Look at that. 81% are saying F. F, F, F. Too much cringe. Yeah, that was pathetic. But we do got breaking news, everybody. From the state of Iowa. Breaking. Ron DeSantis' PAC donates thousands of Iowa legislators who endorsed him. Look at this. Right from NBC News. They have donated nearly $100,000 to a slate of Iowa legislators who have endorsed the governor's White House bid, according to Iowa campaign finance records. At least 14 of the 42 legislators who have endorsed DeSantis received donations from the PAC, ranging in individual sums from $2,500 to $15,000. You cannot make this up. Oh, man. Rob, what are you doing? I'm just baffled. And 68% said F. It's official. This was the worst town hall. Should DeSantis be kicked out of the party? No, but what the hell? You're paying people off to endorse you. I mean, campaigns have done that, but it's pathetic. Ron DeSantis reminds me of that guy from school that no one actually liked, but people would hang around with them just so all the socially awkward people could be in their crowd. Ron, okay. How could the DeSantis campaign get even worse? FEC steps in, and they actually do something. Which they will. It's just a matter of time. Do a regular primary poll. I don't think so. But can you just imagine, though, like, oh, yes, we spent all that money, and Ron DeSantis is paying off state legislators. Yeah, it's not good. Not good at all. Very sad. It's a very sad state of affairs when DeSantis is doing that. Come on. Question is true question is, was this worse than Christie's Blue Pill Town Hall? That's a close second, I would say. That is a close second, but I think this is worse. Just, you expect that from Christie, not a guy that's allegedly smart. At least Ron never went to Epstein Island. Well, Trump never did. You're lying. How much did Rob pay Kim Reynolds for her endorsement? Probably nothing, because she's just a deranged. What did I miss? Everything. Look at the cringe counter. What do you think you missed? I think DeSantis broke the record for cringe. Alright, it looks like Nikki Haley is here. Woo, yay! Remember, if you got any super chats, I'll try to read them through the stream, but my goodness. We're back! Yay! Nikki Haley. Who's ready for Nikki Haley to be a clown? Does DeSantis consider himself part of MAGA or America First? Who frickin' knows? Neither. He's in the middle. He's trying to appeal to everybody and piss everybody off at the same time. Like, that's the answer for DeSantis. For anything. Yay, we got DeSantis here. Alright, dude, you're gone. I think we're gonna all agree Chris Christie won the debate. He did better than some people, but that's not saying much. Alright, so Nikki Haley's here and nobody's paying attention. Everybody is falling asleep. They're all falling asleep. They're like, what do we sign up for? Are they gonna do anything?
Association.
Nope. Still waiting. Trump was literally caught on flight logs, bro. Yeah, to where? You look it up, it was from New York City to Palm Beach. To Palm Beach to New York City. To Atlantic City to New York City. That's all that happened. He never was involved. Give me a break. That would have been leaked 10 years ago, if that was the case. Nikki Haley versus Ron DeSantis. Battle of the Opportunist. Yeah. Alright, yay! Woo, Nikki Haley! That's right! We're here for Nikki Haley, everybody.
All right, so I want to start today. We were, getting ready this morning for this town hall, Governor, and something crossed our wires, a shooting, a school shooting. And here we are with kids back a day or 2 days, and another horrific event in this country. A sixth grader was killed. People were injured. And we did receive from people in this room, updating their questions, asking questions about what had happened about this. So I want to start with Matt Triplett, because I know you have a specific question about what happened today in Perry. You're a senior project manager from Des Moines, a Republican.
Hopefully Nikki Haley
and
is
I know
better,
you've said, you indicated that you support Governor Haley. Go ahead.
Thank you for being here tonight, Governor.
Thank you.
Before I answer or ask my question, I'd like to just give my condolences to the community in Perry tonight, as well as the state of Iowa. So with that, Governor, with the school shooting that happened today in Perry,
sound like you're from Iowa.
How do you plan to address the school shooting issue? Enough is enough with politicians skirting the issue on this, and it must be addressed.
I mean, it's heartbreaking, right? I mean, our hearts go out to the parents of all of them. Our hearts go out to the kids that are going to have to deal with this for a few years.
That one was stunning.
So much thanks to law enforcement, to the chief who did a great job, to the principal who really has come out as such a hero in this. But look, I have a mom heart. My daughter works at the Children's Hospital, and I worry about something happening there. My son is a senior in college. I worry about something happening on his campus. My son-in-law is a fifth grade teacher at a school. I worry about something happening there. Every day, the first thing I do when I wake up is think of my kids, and the last thing I think of when I go to bed is my kids. And so I know the concerns that everybody has.
Trump is a loser because he
But
didn't
it
sue
is
Christie.
time that we deal with this in the way that we should deal with this. Instead of living in fear, let's do something about it. We have got to deal
what
with
are you
the
proposing?
cancer that is mental health. We have to. 1 in 3 people have a mental health issue. But if treated, they can live a perfectly normal life.
What's your proposal?
What we see is 80% of mass shooters are in some sort of crisis at the time that they do that. We've got to do better. The problem is we don't have enough mental health therapists. We don't have enough mental health centers. And if you don't get treated, you can fall into an addiction. We don't have enough addiction centers. And if you happen to be lucky enough to get one of those three, insurance doesn't cover it. So we've got to start doing that. The second thing is we have to secure our schools the same way we secure our airports and our courthouses. And that means we make sure that we have whatever we need to make sure nothing comes through, bullet-wise or otherwise.
I don't think
we need to have a security officer at the front of every school. We need to have one point of entry, no side or rear entries. And then we need to make sure that we have someone on staff, not a guidance counselor, but a mental health counselor that does nothing but look to see which kids may be in crisis.
Wow, this is actually good from Haley. I'm shocked.
Let's start there. That's at least doing something. But we have to do something. This is heartbreaking. I will tell you.
This is a good answer.
What I saw this morning before anybody could even think about these lives and what we do, you have to really think of the families. I had, when I was governor, a school shooting at Townville Elementary. And we had a shooter come in and he shot basically at a playground. And we had little Jacob Hall, who was 6 years old, who died that day, or who died a couple of days later. He was shot that day. I was at the hospital with his parents the night he was shot. The gravity of what that was is something I will never forget, because the prayers that they had, and I knew in what condition he was in. We have to start really focusing on what we're going to do to do this. And everybody thinks, oh, mental health, mental health. We have to stop. Mental health is a serious issue. But if we know it, we can
Why is this
people.
actually good?
What are we doing losing Americans every single day because we refuse to deal with this issue? And the national media has done what they always do. They're wanting to talk about race. They're wanting to talk about gun control. They're wanting to talk about all these other issues. So my advice to the people of Perry,
it's all good stuff.
Give them the respect and let them deal with the families and the sorrow and everything. But when the time comes, let's have that conversation on mental health. When I am president, we will treat it like the crisis that it is.
And Governor, just to be clear, you're being very clear on what you would do, that you want to focus on mental health, that you think that's important. You talked about hardening schools, much like courthouses, right? You were very clear. But just to be clear on gun restrictions themselves, do you favor any additional gun restrictions or no?
I'm a concealed weapons permit holder myself. And I will tell you that we could go and take away a certain kind of gun today, and that would make you feel better today. But a week from now, there'd be another shooting. Let's talk about the hard truths. That's the reality of it. So in a time where we're seeing a lot of lawlessness on our streets and in our cities, we can't go and take away people's rights to protect themselves and protect their families.
Why is she doing good so
Instead, why don't we do the hard work and deal with the mental health? If we start to do that, I know that we will see a reduction in what's happening, but you don't take away from good people because you see something like this happening from other people who commit crimes.
There are a lot of issues on the minds of voters here. And of course, with 11 days to go, one of the big ones is actually the state of this race and where things are. Josh Lemon is a portfolio manager, I know, at a local bank. Josh, you're an independent and you voted for Joe Biden in 2020, but you said you plan to vote for a GOP candidate this time around. And as I was telling everybody watching at home, you're allowed to register right up until caucus night, right? So that's the way it works here in this state.
So bullshit. It's one of those Democrats pretending to be Republican. Are you freaking kidding me?
Correct. And thanks for taking my question.
Thank you.
What is your strategy to overtake Donald Trump in the polls?
You know, I think that what you're seeing is we've got momentum. We've got momentum in Iowa. We've got momentum in New Hampshire. You're going to continue to see us be strong in South Carolina. And really what it's been is it's been about, let's talk about where this is. I personally think President Trump was the right president at the right time. I agree with a lot of his policies. But the reality is, rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him.
Bruh.
And we all know that's true. Chaos follows him. And we can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos.
Blaming
We won't
Trump?
survive it. And you don't defeat Democrat chaos with Republican chaos. Now is the time we need to have a new generational leader. One that's going to leave the negativity and the baggage behind and start focusing on the real
After what you said with
issues that we
slavery.
have in the future. But more than that,
And what you did with Boeing.
Americans don't
Surely
want
there's no
another
baggage with
nail-biter
that.
of an election. And that's what we'll get. Look at any of the polls, head-to-head against Joe Biden.
Chaos.
Ron doesn't beat Biden. Trump, head-to-head with Biden. On a good day, he might be up by 2. The Wall Street Journal had him up by 4. I'm in every one of those same polls. I defeat Biden by 17 points.
If you actually think that's going to happen, bro, that's double Reagan's margin.
That's governorships. That's House.
Nixon
that's
margins.
Senate. That's down to school boards. But more than that, you win by double digits. You're going into D.C. with a mandate.
That's not
a mandate
double
to stop
Reagan
all the wasteful
Reagan's margin.
spending
That
and get
doubles
inflation
Bush's
under
margin.
control. A mandate to get our kids reading again and take education back to the
Bruh.
basics. A mandate to secure our border.
No one
more
actually
excuses.
believes that.
A mandate to bring law and order back to our country, and a mandate
1,000
of a
crews.
strong America that we can be proud of. That's what we're doing. That's
She's
what I
insane.
think we need to do.
Yeah,
it
you
is time to
think?
move past President Trump, and it is time to start focusing on how to strengthen America and do this for our
America.
kids and our grandkids.
RCP Akron has her
There was
up
one
only by
thing
3.5.
you said there, and I know you've
That's
talked
it.
about him being, the chaos following him, but you did say something there I wanted to follow up on as people face this decision. You said, rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him. Is it rightly or wrongly? Is he the one who causes that chaos, or is he just the unwitting victim?
It's both. I mean, you see a lot of these cases they've brought against him are political in nature, and there's no basis on it. And then you see some that he's going to have to answer for. But look, I'm not telling you anything I used to tell him. I used to tell him he's his own worst enemy. And so I think at the end of the day,
why did you serve
we don't
under him?
need anyone who's getting in their feelings. We don't need anyone that's getting personal about anything. We have a country to save. And that means no more drama. No more taking things personally. I mean, you look at the situation, the differences I have with him is, first of all, I'm an accountant. We have got to get our economy back on track. And everybody wants to talk about the economy they had under Trump. But at what cost? At what cost? $8 trillion in 4 years. Our kids will never forgive us.
I don't care how good your
We are
economy
having
was.
to dig out
We
of
need to
it.
stop
So
that
you
from
may have
happening.
had a good 4 years, but look at what we're paying for now.
She cannot keep her mouth shut.
We'll be paying more money in interest
She is
payments
attacking Trump and saying
than we
it was
are
a
in our
good
defense
economy, but
budget.
at what
You know
cost?
who notices that? Russia, China, and Iran. That's what happens there. The second thing is you look at how he deals with dictators.
Goodness.
I think it's completely wrong. He praised China's President Xi a dozen times after China gave us COVID. You don't do that. He congratulated them on the 70th anniversary of the Communist Party. We don't do that. When Israel fell to her knees, you're going to go pick a fight with Israel's prime minister because of some issue, personal issue you had with him before, and you're going to praise
That's not what
Hezbollah?
happened.
It's just not what we need to do. We need to
Even
do
the
this
people of
without
Israel are
emotion.
saying
we need
that
to do
Bosen
this
needs to go
with a
for
sane
failing.
sense of how we're going to take America forward.
All right, so we're going to, and you mentioned the economy, and I want to come back to that in a moment. But first, I do want to bring another audience question. Dave Holm is the executive director
awful.
of the Iowa Institute for Cooperatives, a Republican from Ames, and he does say he's supporting you. Go ahead, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Thank you for being here
Fringe.
tonight,
Thank you.
Governor. Many of our ag co-ops use foreign laborers now, and we would like to use more, but the process is very daunting.
You want to use more
And yet we
foreign
have
labor.
thousands of foreigners crossing into our U.S. daily on our southern border. What is your comprehensive border policy that would address both those that want to contribute and work
it's one
in
of
this
these
country
clowns
and
in
still
Iowa.
maintain our
They're
border
everywhere
security?
in Iowa.
And Dave, you're exactly
These
right.
people want
you
free
can
labor.
do both. And we have to do both. So the first thing is you look at the illegal immigration, all the illegals that are coming to the border. It is truly a dereliction of duty what Biden is allowing to have happen. And to
There's no
now
Trump
think
voters
that
in
Governor
Texas. Well, I
Abbott
think
of
it's
Texas
stupid.
is trying to do everything he can to save Texans. And he's putting barbed wire up. And Biden is trying to go against him to cut the barbed wire? Are you kidding me? Like, you can't go and risk people's lives. America right now is acting like it's September 10th. We better remember what September 12th felt like, because it only takes one. So you have 8 million people that have come to the border, and they've only sent 140,000 back. That's it. And so we're left with taking care of the health care of them, the education of those kids, law enforcement having to deal with them. What we will do is, I passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country when I was governor
legal
of South
immigration, like the
Carolina.
Bosen was
take
talking
that
about?
national. We will do a national E-Verify program that requires businesses to have to prove the people that they hire in this country legally.
No, not necessarily.
We will
They're just idiots
defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens.
They're like that. They
for
actually
illegal
think that.
immigrants.
We need free
we'll
labor.
Put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. That's not happening right now. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we'll go to catch and deport. That's how we will close the border and get that to stop. But legal immigration, our legal immigration system is completely broken too. It shouldn't take someone 10 years to become a citizen.
No, it shouldn't.
And we need to be smart about how we do it. Presidents in the past have always said, set quotas. I'll take this many this year, this many next year.
Yes.
Instead, look at, what does our economy need? I came from an agricultural state and a tourism state. Our farmers needed workers. We need to make sure we are
advocating
on
for
the
cheap
businesses
labor.
that they are not struggling to find workers. And that's the part, when you do it on merit, and that's how we need to bring people in, based on merit, not just a random quota, then you're building up your economy. You're supporting your businesses. You're making sure that we can all grow together. But we've got to make sure we deal with that. I mean, think about it. We have students that come from overseas. We educate them, and then we send them back home.
Yes.
I mean, that's lunacy. We've got to start using some common sense when it comes to that.
You mentioned Governor Abbott. And I wanted to ask you something specific that he's done, but also Governor DeSantis has done. And that is busing migrants from border states up to sanctuary cities. 90,000, according to the tabulation, from Texas alone to New York, Chicago. And obviously, Governor DeSantis has sent migrants to Martha's Vineyard as well as Sacramento. Do you support Governor DeSantis doing that? Would you do that as governor?
I'll talk about Governor Abbott because I think he was courageous. He was the first one to do it. But look at what he's done. Today I was watching Governor Abbott and Mayor Eric Adams kind of having different things to say. Are we really
surprised?
Governor Abbott, if the president won't secure and give security to the people of Texas, a governor has a job to protect your citizens. So he's busing them, but where is he busing them to? New York City is a sanctuary city. So you can't say we're open, we're accepting of everybody, and then when they come to you, say, oh, I didn't mean it, never mind.
So do you think it's been effective, the busing?
I think it's been hugely effective because all of a sudden, the rest of the country is feeling what Texans have had to deal with for so long. And I went to the border, and truly what they deal with is unimaginable. Those ranchers having to look and see if every morning if someone died crossing the fence, having to pick up kids and turn them over to Border Patrol. You look at what the sheriffs go through and the idea that they go and round up whatever illegal immigrants they can find before 7 a.m., take them to Border Patrol documents them and releases them until their court date years from now. We can't keep functioning like that. We are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on.
DeSantis is awful.
You brought up the economy earlier, and I promised we would get to it, and I want to get to it now with you, Molly. Molly Honer is a college student Republican who says she will support any Republican other than Donald Trump. So go ahead with your question.
You're cringe.
Hi, Molly.
Hi, Governor Haley. So I'm going to be graduating from college soon, and I'm worried about the economy. What do you plan to change to make our economy strong?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you know, what Molly is saying is the same thing my son is saying, is the same thing that every young individual coming out of college is saying. And think about it through their eyes. Bless you. First of all, think about the fact that they went through COVID. Then think about the fact that they watched our country go $8 trillion in debt in 4 years under Trump. And now we're saying, oh, we're going to have to pay it back. And they didn't do anything to cause it. Then look at the fact that, one, they have to find a job. Two, They're having to say, how am I going to afford
Becky
to
Edwards,
live?
Republican,
What used to be the American dream of buying a home, the average home buyer in America is now 49 years old. So that's so out of reach for them.
Cringe times 2.
And so they're worried they're not going to be able to afford a place to stay, rent. They're worried they're not going to find a job. They're worried about the debt that the country is in and inflation that's gone up, that everything's more expensive. From their standpoint, they're looking at a country and they're wondering how they're going to get through. And what we owe it to them is to get the economy back on track. The way we get the economy back on track is to first acknowledge that there is a spending problem in D.C. It's not a Republican problem or a Democrat problem. Both of them did that to us. I mean, you look at that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that they passed with no accountability. They have now left us with 80 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. That's a third of our country. And then Republicans opened back up earmarks and pet projects for the first time in 10 years, pushing through 7,000 of them last December. We can't afford things like that. So when it comes to our economy and getting inflation under control, the first thing we need to do is claw back the over $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, let's go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud. 1 out of every $7 was spent fraudulently. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. You have to balance a budget every day.
That's not how that works.
I had to balance a budget as governor. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance the budget? So we'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks, and I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. Then we're going to go and take as many federal programs as we can and send them down to the states. That will reduce the size of the federal government, but it will empower people on the ground.
You
think
still gotta pay
healthcare, think
for
welfare, think education, if we started doing that. Right now, 70% of federal employees are still working from home 3 years after COVID.
Okay.
75% of most of our agencies are sitting empty. We're paying for that. We've got to start getting the waste out of government. This is not them coming to us saying we need more money. This is us going to them saying, you did this, now we're going to have to go and make the hard decisions to get us out.
I don't know what's going on.
And we can do that. And then I think we need to open up the middle class. We're watching in America, the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And what we need to do is why I want to eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. I want to cut taxes on the middle class and simplify the brackets.
That's going to solve everything.
And then let's make the small business tax cuts permanent.
Cut 4 and 8.
They made corporate tax cuts permanent, but they made small business tax cuts temporary. Small businesses are the heartbeat of our economy. We can't just say it, we have to prove it. And that's what we'll do to get our economy back on track.
So you mentioned, you talk a lot about spending, and then you were talking about taxes there a bit. So when you ran for state senate, it was interesting. You were asked to sign a pledge to never raise taxes. And other people that were running against you, they did. They went and they signed it and they did it. It was, they all did it.
Electable,
You told the state newspaper, quote, no one wants to see taxes raised, but I think it would be closed-minded to sign a pledge. Would you sign that pledge now?
I would sign that pledge now simply because I've always been the type, don't handcuff yourself. But I will tell you now, government has way too much money. There's waste in every agency.
I agree,
There's waste in the way we govern.
The way
every bit of it. And we have to, the first thing I want to do is go to every single agency, pull down all the bureaucracy, the red tape, the programs we don't need to have. Government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people. And we are seeing a bloated government that needs to go on a diet. And I think the only way we do that is we sit there and tell them it is now time for them to show the taxpayer a return on investment. It is not time for the taxpayer to continue to have to work for government.
So I want to ask you about something that's been a challenge for your campaign over the past week. And this, of course, is referring back to New Hampshire, where you were asked to explain the cause of the Civil War. You obviously did not mention slavery. And afterwards, you came up, you said that was a mistake. In fact, you said it should have been the first thing that you said. So you did come out and say that. Chris Christie, though, came out and said that you gave that answer not because you're, in his words, dumb or racist, but because you're, quote, unwilling to offend anyone by telling the truth. What do you say to that?
No one's ever said that I am unwilling to offend. I offend plenty of people because I call people out when they do something wrong.
You're stupid.
What I will tell you is Chris Christie is from New Jersey. I should have said slavery right off the bat. But if you grow up in South Carolina, literally in 2nd and 3rd grade, you learn about slavery. You grow up and you have, I had black friends growing up. It is a very talked about thing. We have a
Democrats
big
are the real
history in
racists?
South Carolina when it comes to, slavery, when it comes to all the things that happened with the Civil War, all of that. I was thinking past slavery and talking about the lesson that we would learn going forward. I shouldn't have done that. I should have said slavery, but in my mind, that's a given that everybody associates.
That's what you thought?
So when you talk about slavery being a constant point of discussion and being a point in where you go, my children growing up in New York, they learn about slavery in 1st grade too. Can you share
the lady's like, what the hell is she talking
slavery
about?
were like? In your household, you've talked about experiencing humiliating discrimination when you were a little girl, things you remember. What were the discussions about slavery like for you?
Demon Rats are the real fascist.
I mean, I think that no different than anyone else in South Carolina. I mean, we had the time that I came and grew up, we were the only Indian family in a small rural southern town.
Did she just admit that?
We weren't white enough to be white. We weren't black enough to be black. They didn't know who we were, what we were, or why we were there. So we dealt with our own challenges. And I remember when I would get teased on the playground, and I would come home, my mom would always say, your job is not to show them how you're different. Your job is to show them how you're similar. And it's amazing how that lesson on the playground played throughout my life. Because whether it's in the corporate world or as governor or as ambassador, when you're first faced with a challenge, if you talk about what you have in common, people let their guard down, and then you can get to a solution. So when you talk about slavery, it was not just slavery that was talked about. It was more about racism that was talked about.
What?
It was more about, we had friends, we had black friends, we had white friends, but it was always a topic of conversation.
What is she even going on about?
Even among our friends.
Politics.
And in the South, we're very comfortable talking about it because we know that's what it is. But the goal was always to make today better than yesterday. And even though that there was, a lot of hardened thoughts on that there. I mean, we went through it. I dealt with my share of dealing with race issues. We had the tragic shooting of Walter Scott. He was an unarmed black man that was shot in the back 7 times by a dirty cop. And this was on the heels of Ferguson. South Carolina could have caught on fire, but we didn't do that. I talked to the Walter Scott family. I talked to law enforcement, and a month to the day, at the bill signing, we had them both there, and we signed the first body camera bill in the country. A month later, we had the horrific shooting at Mother Emanuel Church when a white supremacist went into a Bible study and took 9 amazing souls. The entire national media came in wanting to make it about gun control and racism and death penalty.
Why is she talking about this?
And I said at the time, there will be a time and place we have those conversations, but right now we have 9 souls we need to lay to rest. And I didn't have that luxury because 2 days later, the killer came out with his manifesto, and he was draped in the Confederate flag. And the Confederate flag had always been either on top of the State House or right in front of the State House since the year 2000.
Is she going where I think she's going?
And it is incredibly sensitive and a personal issue in South Carolina. And I focused that next day. I said, I want to have 4 meetings. I want to call Republican leadership. I want to call Democrat leadership. I want to call the congressional delegation.
I don't get what she's
and I want to call
about.
community leaders. And I told my staff, don't tell them what this is about because I knew they wouldn't show up. And when they came, I said at 3 o'clock today, I'm going to call for the Confederate flag to come down. And if you will stand with me, I will forever be grateful. And if you won't,
that's why she did that?
I'll never let anyone know that you were in this room.
Because there's one lunatic that had a
And it was a
Confederate
tough
flag.
thing, Aaron,
That's the
because we
dumbest
had
thing
to
I've
have
ever
2/3
heard.
of the House and 2/3 of the Senate. And to bring a divided state together
That is
and
the
avoid
dumbest thing
riots
I've ever
and
heard.
protests, the way we
That's
did
like
that was
saying
I
if
knew
some
half
lunatic
of
had the
South
American
Carolinians
flag and did
saw the
that.
Confederate
Would
flag
you ban the
as
American
heritage
flag?
and tradition. The other half of South Carolinians saw it as slavery and hate. My job wasn't to judge either side.
She's
My
erasing
job
history.
was to
That's
get
not
them to see
wrong.
the best of themselves
That's
and go
unfreaking
forward.
believable.
And South Carolinians showed what true strength and grace look like, because we didn't have protests, we had vigils. We didn't have riots, we had prayer.
She sounds
and
so
South
like
Carolina led the way, but that is the way we have to work on
cringe
issues
has reached
that try and divide us. Is don't go and pick who's right and who's wrong and who's good and who's bad. That's what leaders are doing now, and it's caused us to be completely in political disarray. A leader doesn't decide who's right. When you serve the people, you serve everybody. And your job is to give them all the information you have and let them know where you want to go going forward.
Lady is a teacher. She's from Ames here in Iowa. She's a Republican and she is undecided. So go ahead with your question, Carol.
Democrat.
Governor Haley, you are a very strong supporter of Israel. Do you believe the IDF operations in Gaza are disproportional to the October 7th attack on Israel, reprehensible as that was?
You know, I'm haunted by what happened on October 7th.
You're haunted?
And the reason I'm haunted is because 5 years ago, I gave a speech to the entire world at the UN. And I told them that we knew there were maps. And these maps were held by Hamas. And it showed that if they could break through the barrier, it was how they were going to kill as many Jews as fast as they could. And it happened. And when you look at the situation that happened, and for anybody that says, why should we care about Israel? And my opponents have said it's Israel's issue. No, it's our issue too. Because 33 Americans were butchered that day. We have American hostages now.
I'm not denying that part, but we should not be
starting shit over there. But Israel is a bright spot
again.
in a tough neighborhood. They're the tip of the spear when it comes to defeating terrorism. It has never been that Israel needs America. It has always been that America needs Israel. And on that horrific day, when they beheaded those people and burned those babies alive and took those girls out of the concert and raped them and dragged their naked bodies through the streets of Gaza, what did they say? Death to Israel, death to America. We have got to do three things when it comes to Israel. We need to give them whatever they need whenever they need it.
Don't they have the best military in the Middle East?
We need to eliminate Hamas, finish them so they can never do this horrific stuff again. And we need to do whatever it takes to bring our hostages home. In order to eliminate Hamas, it requires them to go into Gaza. Hamas does not care about human life. They use women and children as human shields. There's a reason that they have all of their areas underneath hospitals and schools. I've been there. I've been in those tunnels. They're very sophisticated. That's probably where the hostages are being held now. Gazans would be so much better off without Hamas. But I know and I trust that Israel will do whatever it takes to make sure they save as many people as they can. You have to know the difference between terrorists and civilians. That's what civilized countries do. America's a civilized country. Israel's a civilized country. Hamas is not civilized. They don't value human life. And they keep trying to put people in harm's way because they don't want it to happen. What I will say is when everybody is putting the onus on Israel and on America to do something with helping the people of Gaza, where's Egypt? Where's Qatar? Where's Turkey? Where's Iran? Where are all the pro-Hamas countries that say they care? Why is it on Israel? Why aren't they getting Hamas to stop? Why are they forgiving that brutality? Let's put the accountability where it needs to be.
She would start shit over there. This is why I'll never support her, by the way.
Israel watched their people
the same logic people like Bush use. Oh, they're not.
If that was
Iraq
us,
isn't doing enough.
Do you think we would do a ceasefire? Do you think we would stop? We would do whatever it takes to make sure that Americans were taken care of and that we had our say. And so I will tell you, I think Israel is doing what they have to make sure it doesn't happen again, because what did Hamas say? They're going to go back and do it again. They're not finished.
And ambassador, and I know obviously you're ambassador of the UN, and that's in the capacity you went into the tunnels. Obviously, what's happening in Gaza, though, there was a horrific loss of civilian life going on as well, and a huge stratospheric loss. 2 Israeli cabinet members came out this week, and they actually advocated for relocating people from Gaza out of Gaza, basically Palestinians out of Gaza, and that there, some of the Israeli government that support
crisis.
that.
That's refugee crisis.
Would President Haley support that? Would you support removing Palestinians from Gaza?
I don't think you have to remove Palestinians from Gaza. I think you have to remove Hamas from Gaza. But I think you also need to make sure that Israelis can feel safe again. Mm-hmm. And the way Israelis will feel safe, they're not opposed to Palestinians being in Gaza. They're opposed to terrorists being in Gaza.
They gotta feel
They're
safe.
opposed to terrorists being at their doorstep.
Crap.
And so Israel doesn't want Gaza. I mean, if you look at what Hamas has done to Gaza, Israel doesn't want Gaza. But the Palestinian Authority has proven they have an inability to lead. And the reason they have an inability to lead is they allowed Hamas to come in and do all of this to the people of Gaza. So I don't think we remove Palestinians, but I think they have to have some sort of leadership that ensures to Israelis
that sound like
that they don't have to worry about terrorists living on their doorstep.
A certain Iraqi war.
All right, Marcia Aarons is a retiree from Urbandale. Marcia, we're glad you're here tonight. A Republican, and I know you also say you're supporting.
I'm not saying
Haley, go ahead.
I'm Marcia.
I don't support Hamas or anything like that, but like.
I just
what
want
she
to
is
thank
saying is
CNN
effectively
and
what
Aaron
Bush
and
said.
Caitlin for having this town hall tonight, and Grandview for hosting it. Also, Nikki, thank you so much
She's
for all your
copying
time
and
in
pasting
Iowa. I
what
really
Bush said in
appreciate you
2003.
being here all
It's
over.
been fun.
Good. I am wondering how you would reach voters that are concerned that you are more of a war hawk versus a peace through strength leader.
Yeah, that's
a great question. First of all, I am the wife of a combat veteran.
What did I miss?
Who is deployed now
what do you think?
on a year-long deployment. Any military family will tell you the last thing you want is for your loved one to go to war. My number one goal has always been preventing war. And let's talk about what's caused
You just said 2 seconds
ago. The rest of my
opponents start a war.
Think that we shouldn't be in Ukraine, don't need to do anything with Ukraine. Trump, Ron, all of them has said, let's leave Ukraine. Let me tell you why Ukraine is important.
She just said,
First of
I
all,
don't
you
want
should know at the
unnecessary
United
wars.
Nations,
Anyways, here's
Ukraine
why
was one of our good friends. They voted with us on almost everything. They supported all of our initiatives, whether I asked them to or not.
Okay.
But here you have this pro-American, freedom-loving country that was invaded by a thug. 500,000 people have died and been wounded because of Putin.
Hold on.
Now, I don't think
just say
we
that?
should give cash to any country, friend or foe, because you can't
Freedom
follow it,
loving.
and you can't hold it accountable. I don't think we need to put troops on the ground in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians don't want it. They want to win this themselves. But I think we need to give them the equipment and the ammunition to win. Why should we care about Ukraine? Anybody thinking that, that's a legitimate question for you to ask. And I am sorry that Biden and no member of Congress is explaining that to you, but I will because you deserve it. When I was at the United Nations, I saw that terrorists, dictators, and thugs always tell you what they're going to do. They're amazingly transparent. Hamas said they were going to go into Israel. They did.
I don't remember
China
that.
said they were going to take Hong Kong. We watched it. Russia
They already
invaded
controlled
Ukraine.
Hong Kong.
They
It was
told
like the
us they were
90s it
going to.
happened.
China says Taiwan is next. We better believe them. Russia said once they take Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next.
No.
Those are NATO countries, and that puts America
Are
at
you
war.
actually thinking he's going to
This
invade
is about
NATO?
preventing
That's
war.
war with
It has
NATO.
always been about preventing war. We don't want our men and women to go have to fight. And so supporting Ukraine is actually preventing war and seeing it for what it is. And Putin has hit rock bottom. We know that. He's lost 87% of the troops that started the war. They've raised the draft age in Russia to 65.
Oh, look what
They're
Ukraine
getting drones from Iran and missiles from North Korea. We know they've hit rock bottom.
Look
but
at
now
Ukraine.
let me tell you something else that's really important, Aaron. I told you about that brutality on October 7th in Israel, right? October 7th is Putin's birthday.
Oh my, she's doing
Who's the
the same
happiest
crap.
man in the world right now? Putin. Why?
What?
Because the U.S. and the West took all our eyes and our resources off of Ukraine, and what did we do?
This is absolutely.
We
This is
started
why I've never
looking at
voted for
Israel.
Haley. If she ever won the
And did
nomination,
Putin
voted
go
for
and
Biden.
call-
Screw it.
Netanyahu
At
in
least
Israel?
Biden's
Nope,
not.
for
At least
10 days. You know who he did call?
He's not
Hamas,
there, but
invited
at
them
least
to
he
Russia,
understands.
and they held hands and
This is
said they were
insane
friends.
what she's proposing.
See this for the connection that it is.
I would consider voting for Biden.
China and Russia held
I'll
hands
probably vote
before
for
the
RFK, but
Olympics
still.
and named themselves unlimited partners. There is an
We have broken
unholy
the cringe
alliance
counter.
of China,
I
Russia,
mean,
and Iran
what am I
bound
supposed to do
together
from here?
in their hatred against freedom, democracy, and above all things, the United
Democracy.
States of America.
We love
Our
democracy.
job is to always prevent war and protect Americans.
All right. Governor Haley, we're going to be right back. We're going to take a very brief break. Everyone watching at home, stay with us. We'll be back in a moment with the Republican presidential candidate.
Goodness. What was that segment? I'm baffled for what I just heard. It's all connected. Yeah. Did I just hear her say what I think she just said? So she indirectly said, yes, we need to start another refugee crisis. She indirectly said, yes, we need a shit fest with Russia. Now she's saying there's a grand conspiracy that Hamas worked with Putin to attack Israel. You know what? I'm doing a poll. Rate Nikki Haley's performance. A/B, C, D, F. What? Did you just say you would vote Biden potentially? If it's against Haley, I might as well. At that point, I'm throwing my vote away anyways. Might as well vote for Biden. They both get an F. This is just... I would consider voting for Biden over Haley. That's how pathetic this is. She's F-. We're not even in F- territory. We are surpassing what even Chris Christie... No. Chris Christie had a masterpiece of a town hall when he talked about Viagra compared to this. Thank God Trump now knows this clown cannot be anywhere near the White House. 84% are giving an F. Congratulations, Haley. You won something for once. Absolutely useless. Yeah, we are in like, no, we're not even in alphabet anymore. We're in like freaking negative numbers. Yeah, negative Z or something. That was pathetic. Absolutely worthless. She's making Trump look reasonable. Well, she's making this Chris Christie look like a genius. Christie talk about premarital relations is better than this. Ben Sinnix for 2. At least Christie's good on drugs. At least with Christie, and I would vote for Christie over Biden, because he sucks on most issues, but at least, you know, when you take out the Trump derangement syndrome, he has a brain, comparatively. He at least can think for himself. It's not correct, but at least, you know, he's there mentally, and he understands, hey, I understand, I actually agree with Christie on some things, but yeah. Negative infinity. We're at below that at this point. Negative infinity. It's like infinity squared. I would support Chris Christie. If it's Chris Christie versus Haley, I would enthusiastically vote for Christie. That's how pathetic this is.
You about something you said at a town hall in New Hampshire. You talk about the importance of New Hampshire and Iowa. We're here in Iowa.
Here we go.
But you said about the primary process that while Iowa goes first, New Hampshire, quote, corrects it.
Oh, my gosh.
Boo her!
DeSantis said that was incredibly disrespectful.
What an elitist
to Iowa.
asshole for saying that.
And of course, we are here in Iowa. I'm just looking around
What
at
an
people's
elitist
faces.
asshole for
Okay,
saying
so
that.
is there anything else you'd like to say?
Look, we have done 150 plus town halls.
She's just going to deny it. No,
you got to
I didn't
have
say
some
anything.
fun, too. So we're at this town hall. We
fun?
had 700 people in New Hampshire. We're cutting up, and yes, I said that. But keep in mind, I'm from an early state. South Carolina always knew that Iowa's going to be the first caucus, New Hampshire's going to be first in the nation, and South Carolina wanted to be first in the South. It was a pact. It's still a pact that the three states, at least on the Republican side, had, that we were going to keep that. But we banter against each other on different
Forgetting
things.
Nevada
New
exists,
Hampshire
by the
makes
way.
fun of Iowa. Iowa makes fun of South Carolina.
What?
It's what we do. So, I
never
think
heard
the
of something
problem in
so
politics
stupid.
now is it's
You make
just
fun
like
of a state
too
you're running
serious
in?
and too dramatic. If we're having fun, I don't live, eat, and breathe politics all the time. I like to have fun too. And so if I'm hanging out with 700 people and we're trying to make jokes and have a good time, like you should be able to
So
do
that
that
didn't
without.
reflect a lack of confidence in how you thought you would do here.
I would not sit here and in the cold, because it's cold here. I have been coming here for
Yeah, it's cold in
months,
90% of the country.
going to every
when you're
part
not on the
of
West
Iowa,
Coast or East
shaking
Coast.
every hand, answering every question, being the last person to leave at every one of these town halls.
I never heard of something
You
so
are going to see
stupid.
me fight until the very end on the last day in Iowa. And I'm not playing in one state. I'm fighting in every state because I think everybody's worth fighting for. And so, yes, we're going to continue to be here. I mean, I've told people, get used to this face, and I've been here over and over again. But if I didn't love Iowa, I wouldn't keep coming to Iowa. So, but if we're going to have fun, I'm probably going to say something funny in Iowa tomorrow about South Carolina or New
I hate
Hampshire.
when
It's
politics.
the way
I
to just
hate when
kind
she
of
does
not
that.
make everything so
I
serious.
actually meant this, the inside
All right,
joke.
Denise.
Oh, bull crap.
Denise Haig is the
You just got
director
caught in
of
the
community
hot mic.
resources at a local arts center here in Iowa, a Republican from Milwaukee who says she's undecided. So, Denise, go
Another
ahead.
undecided. Where's the Trump voters
Nice
at?
to meet you, Nikki.
Nice to meet you.
In the spirit of fun, I want to tell you I'm loving your dress. By the way.
Thank you.
Really?
My question is, do you see any inherent challenges to being president as a woman, or do you feel like we've evolved?
What?
Do you mean globally or do you mean domestically?
As a country.
As a country, I think America has been ready for a woman, but it has to be the right woman, right? I'm one of those, I don't think, and I think a lot of women will agree to this. We don't support women just because they're women. I mean, we love to see women do well.
That's your campaign.
I
I'm a
think
woman,
women are
vote
rock
for
stars.
me.
I love to see women do well.
You
But a
just said that.
president's a big deal, and it's a serious issue. And I think what we've seen in politics for really a lot lately is they look at a label and they say, oh, we're going to get this label or we need this label. Well, that's what's
Haley's
gotten
a
us into
combination
this
of Joe
mess.
Biden and Hillary Clinton.
And trust
That just
me,
so
like,
happens to be
I
bleeding
think you
more
look at what
taxes.
Biden's done, and he said, I want this kind of Supreme Court justice, or I want this kind of vice president. That's a mistake.
What the hell
I
is that
do think
question? I
America's
don't
ready for a
freaking know.
female president. I do think that America's
What is
been
this,
ready, but it's got to be the
1950s?
right one. And
these
they
people
want to
think
know
we
it's
live in
somebody who's going to have fight.
1954
They
or
want to
something?
know that it's going to have somebody that has moral clarity. They want to know that it's someone who has experience. I have been a two-term governor that took a double-digit unemployment state and turned it into an economic powerhouse. I dealt with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Israel every single
Israel
day
launch
that
pad,
I
for
was at
God's
the
sake.
UN.
Yeah.
And I took the kick me sign off of our backs, and America was
I'm a
respected
woman.
again
Vote
there.
for me.
So
That's
is
Nikki
America
Haley's
ready for a
campaign.
female president? You bet they're ready for a female president, and I'm going to be the one that makes them proud.
No. Go away.
Zachary Van Woordhuizen is a law student from Newton. He's an independent. He voted for Biden in 2020, but says, I believe, that you plan to support Governor Haley in the caucuses. We'll see. I don't know what you've heard tonight, but go ahead with your questions, Zachary.
Totally.
I knew I liked you.
Totally.
Governor Haley, you have taken a vocally anti-Chinese stance in many of your campaign ads. Do you plan to continue this stance if elected, or will you try to work with China to solve the problems that have prompted such a stance?
At the United Nations, I dealt with China every day. And what frustrates me is you see Biden and Yellen sitting there trying to tell us that China's a competitor. China never saw us as a competitor. They always saw us as an enemy. And all you have to do is look at what China's done. They have completely infiltrated our country. They bought 400,000 acres of U.S. soil, most recently near Grand Forks Air Force Base, where our most sensitive drone technology is.
Not wrong
They
on that
poured
front,
millions
but
of dollars
really,
into our
she has to
universities,
get the spin
stealing
of, like,
our
it's
research,
Cold
spreading
War. We have to
Chinese propaganda.
Start up the Cold War tactics.
You go and you look at, there's certain technologies we never want China to have because it builds up their military and threatens America. Yet the Biden administration approved 70% of it last year. The Trump administration approved more than that. Everybody got upset about this Chinese spy balloon, right? And rightfully so.
No, she's saying
what about the
enemy
fact that
she wants to be like,
90% of our law enforcement drones are Chinese? You've got Chinese police stations throughout our country. You've got a Chinese spy base going off our shores in Cuba.
Well, to be fair, that is critical.
And you've got China building up their military
Taiwan
at
has
a
absolutely
scary
critical.
pace.
We don't have that here.
They now have 500 nuclear warheads. That's 100 more than they had last year.
Yeah, but
they have
China's
the largest naval fleet in the world.
So
they have 370 ships. They'll have
time.
400 ships in 2 years. We won't even have 350 ships in 2 decades. They're doing artificial intelligence, they're doing cyber, they're doing space, they're doing hypersonic missiles. We've barely gotten started. And now China's the lead developer of neurostrike weapons. Weapons engineered, bless you, to change the mental capabilities of military commanders and segments of the population. That's who we're dealing with.
Hold up,
so
didn't
yes,
Alex Jones
we're
say
going to be
something about
tough on
this
China,
20
but
years
do you
ago?
stop talking to them?
What does he call it,
No.
conspiracy
You
theorist?
actually keep your enemies close so you know what they're doing all the time. But you do let your enemies know what we expect of them. And the way we will deal with China is no more selling them any U.S. soil, and we take back the land they already purchased. We make sure that we go to all the universities and say you either take foreign money or you take American money, but the days of taking both are over. And we tell them we're going to end all normal trade relations with them until they stop murdering Americans with fentanyl. And they're the ones sending it over.
Now, Ambassador,
it's like our Air Force. Our Air Force would wipe anybody.
You, as governor, I'm just looking at the numbers here. We were looking at more than $1.4 billion in Chinese investment came into South Carolina while you were governor.
Good question.
That time you were courting investment, you wanted that money to come in. But, you just mentioned the drones being bought by the police stations. But you were actively courting that as well. There's a Chinese fiberglass manufacturer with Chinese ties to the Communist Party that opened a factory in your state while you were governor.
How many aircraft carriers do you
regret any of that? Was that worth it?
Well, I think you look, every governor in the country was trying to recruit Chinese companies 10 years ago. Every household has Chinese products in it. It shows how intertwined
then
it's all
make stuff
become.
in America.
But now we know what the threat is. And so, yes, it was less than 1% of what I recruited. I recruited a lot. We were known as the beast of the Southeast.
You knew
less
about
than
this
1%
for 30 years.
was Chinese.
And now
so you're
it's
not
a
saying it's a
problem?
mistake. You're just saying that your view of the situation has changed.
Well, now look at what we know about China that we didn't know 10 years ago.
Well, you didn't know
It's
about China.
drastically different.
What?
When the reality is, presidents, Republican and Democrat, for too long, thought that if we were nice to China, they'd want to be like us. China's never wanted to be like us. They want to be communist.
That's not why
they never should have gotten into the World Trade Organization back in 2001 when the U.S. helped them get in.
Not because they're going to
But
copy
now,
the US.
let's not keep going down that path. Let's stop it. I fought China every day at the UN. We need to continue to do that now until we put them back in their place.
All right, we're going to take one more brief break, and we'll be right back with more from Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley.
I don't think I could handle any more of this. Just 5 more minutes. Did she really claim that we were going to be best friends with China because they wanted to copy us? Bullshit! We did it because GDP. That's the only reason we did it. It's not they want to copy the United States. No. They wanted to take our industry, build their economy, and sink us. And we thought, GDP's going to go up. Well, guess what? That didn't go too well. Yeah, she can't even name a single Ukrainian province. But, she wants to send our weapons over there and potentially our boys to die in some endless war. Congratulations. You made me sooner vote for Cornel West over Nikki Haley. That's how shit she is doing. I will vote for Biden over Nikki Haley. I don't care. I'll probably vote for RFK, but if it was between Haley and Biden, only 2 choices, and I can't write in anybody, I would vote in Biden. That's the truth of it. This clown would be far worse than Biden. It would destroy this country way worse than Biden ever could. So yeah. Rap, could the old Iowa-class battleships destroy most of the Chinese Navy? Oh, yeah. I mean, freaking our ships in World War II probably wipe out the Chinese Navy. Just being realistic. Yeah. It would. That's how pathetic the Chinese Navy really is when you look at it. At least Biden might avoid World War III. At least he's trying. He's not like, oh, we gotta start World War III, even though you can make your arguments about it. Let's not go that far, Rap, but okay. Well, listen. What would you rather have? 4 years of an incompetent, senile asshole that may not even last 4 years. Or somebody that's knowingly destroying the country, just lying about her policies, doing all that crap, who's a quote-unquote Republican. I think it would be best case scenario if she got crushed. Because then the GOP would learn, oh, let's not do that again. Yeah, Biden is stupid, Haley's malicious. That's 100% real. Only Republican I would even consider voting for Biden over. Only one. Ask Hutchinson, I just wouldn't vote. China's Navy can't even invade an island 50 miles away. How are they going to fight us in the middle of the Pacific? Yeah, our Navy would wipe them in one shot. I mean, our aircraft carrier alone, one of them, would wipe out the Navy of China. Can you imagine the entire Navy going against each other? Funny. The GOP never learns, Rap. Yeah. All right. If anyone got any super chats, any more last second questions, send them now because we're at the end of the town halls. Man, it's definitely been a dread. It's just been dragging. Do a poll of Haley versus Biden. I might. Never, ever support Haley. That's all I'm going to say. It's a disaster waiting to happen. All right. We're back. I think.
Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. So,
right.
Governor, you've talked about being a mom even here, and I know it's a crucial part of your identity and who you are. You've got
identity
2 children.
Politics.
Last year, your daughter got married, and just recently you dropped your son off for his final year at Villanova. Okay. So you posted a picture of that moment that I saw, actually in a People magazine article, and the hashtags were, "When did my little one grow up?" and "Proud Mom." And, I'm a mother myself now, and, you can look at anyone, right? You see your little child, and then boom.
What is this
and
question?
It just happens so fast. I was wondering, as you think about being president of the United States, what makes you the most proud as a mother?
Oh, I mean, like I get emotional thinking about my kids. When my daughter was walking down the aisle, I still see her in pigtails. So when I say, when did they grow up? I mean, so much of it, they're just good kids. My daughter is a pediatric nurse at the Children's Hospital. My son, like I said, is a senior in college.
Yeah,
and they're just good kids.
It never
and
ends.
they've grown up in a public life. And the one thing Michael and I always wanted was for them to feel very normal. And that's what I'm most proud of. We always, even when I was governor, we had dinner tonight together 5 nights out of the week. I wanted the kids to know that we were having family dinner. And Sundays were, our special days. And Fridays were Haley Family Fun Nights. We always tried to keep it very normal. I never told my kids, I always said, you don't have to do anything but go to the Christmas tree lighting and the State of the Address. And everything else they could decide if they wanted to go. And so having them grow up as normal and as grounded as they are, they're humble, they're respectful, they're hardworking, and they're just good people. And my husband and I always said, if we can make sure they have a faith and a conscience, we will have done our job. And we have done our job. I'm incredibly proud of them.
Catherine Duffy is a professor of music here at Grandview, and it's been great to be here these past couple of days in your school. A Republican from Ankeny who says that she supports you. Catherine, go ahead.
Another Nikki Haley show.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. This is like the
Professor
5
Haley.
Nikki Haley fans.
Could you please explain to us your rationale for pardoning Mr. Trump when he's been associated with so much division and chaos in our country?
Bruh.
When you talk about a pardon, the person has already been found guilty. You know, when it comes to President Trump, he still has to face, and we'll find out whether he's guilty or not. But if we're talking about a pardon, you're assuming he's guilty, because nobody gets pardoned if you're not guilty. For me, it's not about guilt or innocence.
Nothing.
It's about what's in the best interest for the country. And I don't think our country will move forward with an 80-year-old president sitting in jail that allows our country to continue to be divided.
What?
We have to move on past
This
that.
kind of CIA
and so I
psychological
honestly do
torture.
believe,
This
just
is what
like
they
they
use in
did with
Black
Nixon,
Ops.
you've got to say what's in the best interest of the country. And I think pardoning Trump and moving on is in the best interest of our country if we're going to heal and if we're going to get back together and get out of the chaos.
Jeff Quarter is a lawyer at Iowa's largest law firm. I said, what an appropriate name you have when I saw this. I mean, Jeff Quarter. Okay, from West Des Moines, a Republican who says he's supporting you. Jeff, go with your question.
Hi, Jeff.
Ambassador Haley, great to see you again,
Nice
and
to
great to see you last Saturday in Carver Hawkeye Arena watching the Iowa Hawkeye win.
So much fun. So much fun.
That's what this feels like
And
right
bonus
now.
time with Ambassador Branstad.
Yes.
So my question for you tonight to wrap this up is, as president, how will you work to better unite America after the past 16 years of such divisive politics? Thank you.
It's a great question. And the tone at the top matters, right? You know, when I talked about how we could have been completely devastated in South Carolina with the shooting of Walter Scott, how we could have been completely devastated in South Carolina with the murder of those 9 amazing souls at Mother Emanuel Church, how we could have been divided on so many other things. South Carolina always held strong and held together. And it was because I knew I served and represented
This is
all
all the
of
Haley
them,
supporters
not
in
just
Iowa.
a select group, all of them. And that means I didn't think of any of
was pardoned without being convicted.
South Carolina
Which is a right
as
move, by
good
the way.
or as bad or as
Both
right
are
or
right.
as wrong. I just knew I needed to over-communicate, tell them
Isn't it a town
everything
hall
I
meant
knew,
for
and
more
that's
than
how
just
I'll
your
be as a
supporters?
president.
Yeah,
You'll
even
know
Chris
more
Christie's
than you
town
want to
hall had
know,
different people.
because I think it's
This is just
important that you
Nikki
know
Haley
everything,
shows.
and then tell you about where we go and move forward. But more than that, on my first day, you start by controlling what you can control first, and that is I will focus on my agencies. We'll replace the head of every agency, whether they're doing a good job or not, to
Most Haley
freshen it
supporters
up.
are tedious lunatics.
I did this as governor. The second thing I did was I sent people into every agency to clean it up, pull down old programs, pull down any old regs, pull down bureaucracy, get it working again, and mission focus so that it's not too big. In some cases, and get rid of problem children. Trust me, agencies have problem children. In some cases, we tweaked agencies. In other cases, we gutted agencies.
Get rid of all
And then
of them.
I required them to start
Burn
doing
every
90-day
agency down.
benchmarks. I wanted them to show
All
a
of
return
them.
on investment to the
Reform them
taxpayer
or get rid
so
of
that
them
they saw what it
completely.
was like to work again. And then we saw that they were spending money because they thought they weren't going to get the same amount the next year. So I put all the spending online for every taxpayer to see. And then I incentivized them to give money back to the taxpayers. And magic happened because they started to compete to see who could be the most effective and most efficient. And then I went to my legislature and said, it's your turn. And I started by giving them a couple of things that were easy so they could remember what it was like to win again. We need to do that with our Congress. They need to know what it's like to win again together. And then you give them things that are harder and harder.
Just keeps going
That's
on and
important.
on.
We have to get government used to producing and giving results again.
Burn it
And I'll
down.
do it by starting with myself and starting with our agencies and getting them to work for the people again.
Fire
and then going
everybody
to
or
Congress and
reform it.
saying,
That's
you
all
know
you gotta
what,
do.
no more peacocking on TV, no more sitting there and pointing fingers to anybody else. The buck starts here, and it's time to get things done for the American people. And it's an amazing thing. I have called out Republicans. I've called out Democrats.
Just
I've
end
praised
this,
Republicans.
please.
I've praised Democrats. Legislators love to be praised, and they hate to be called out. It's a magic tool that has always worked for me. Whether I was calling out China or Russia at the UN, they didn't like to be called out. No one does.
That's all she does.
But when you do it for the right reasons,
at least
and you know who you serve,
stops,
that's when you get things moving again.
All right. Well, Governor Haley, thank you so much for being here in this room and, of course, speaking to the voters here in Iowa. Thanks so much to all of you for sitting here through this meeting and being part of these town halls.
Okay, we're done. I gotta tell you, all of you, that may have been the worst town hall I have ever sat through. And I sat through Chris Christie town halls. Remember, I sat through basically all of them. And this one topped them all. I'm just stunned. Being a jigsaw trap would be better than this. Yeah. All right. If anyone got any last second super chats, any more questions, concerns, whatever, send them now or forever go in peace. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Last second calls for anything, but man, that sucked. I'm sorry. I did not expect that. What was that? Do a Biden versus Haley poll. I mean, sure. Okay. Who would you vote for? Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's do a question on who won tonight. No, who, in quotations, won tonight. DeSantis, Haley. Here, have you read the book Party of the People that talked to the new populist coalition, the GOP? I don't think so. No. I've heard about it, though. All right. I think I'm ending the stream here. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below. Subscribe. Share with your friends. Hit that little bell. Follow the social media accounts in the description down below. And, of course, join the channel today. Thank you all so much. I'm just baffled at what we just saw. But, yeah. God.